Am I the jerk for refusing to give my sister my extra money after I sold my house? Because she's convinced that I don't need the money and that it should be easy for me to give her $10,000. And right now I'm honestly just super pissed off about this because I didn't even want her knowing about this, and yet now I'm being made to feel like the bad guy all because I want to keep the money that I made. And at this point I just don't know what to do. Welcome back to Am I the Jerk, the only show that reinforces the idea that yes, if you make money, don't tell anyone about it. Because the original poster in this first one is in some hot water. They made a good chunk of money after selling their house, and now the family wants a piece of the pie. And they're saying no, and the crap is hitting the fan. So subscribe to Am I the Jerk and click the bell to turn on notifications and to never miss a video. And with that, let's get started. Okay, so this has really been bothering me for a while, so I really need everybody's opinions on this. Recently, I sold my house and made a decent profit of about $85,000 after everything was said and done. Meanwhile, I bought the house 6 years ago when the market was low, and I lived pretty well. And I did a lot of renovations myself with some help from my friends, and although it really wasn't like this glamorous project, I did put a lot of time and effort into it. Anyways, my younger sister has always struggled financially. She has 2 kids and works part-time, and her husband's income is inconsistent. Well, I've helped her out over the years here and there, and it's not really been anything huge. Like maybe I'll cover her groceries or pay a utility bill once in a while, stuff like that. But when I sold my house, my mom somehow told the entire family how much I made, and a few days later, my sister called me up crying, saying that they're behind on rent and might get evicted. And it's here that she asked me if I could give them $10,000 since I have extra money now, and apparently it wouldn't really affect my life. I then told her that I wasn't comfortable just giving away that amount of money, but I could maybe help with a smaller amount or even help her figure out some kind of plan. But to me, $10,000 felt way too much. Well, when I said this, she then got really upset with me and said that I was being selfish and that I care more about money than my own family, which seriously annoyed me. But you know what? I just let it slide. And now my mom is pressuring me, saying that family should help family out, and that I'm in a privileged position since I don't have any kids, and that if the roles were reversed, my sister would help me out, which by the way, if I'm being completely honest, I don't think that's true at all. But hey, maybe that's unfair of me to assume. But for what it's worth, I'm just not sitting on the money. I'm planning to use it as a down payment for another house, and I've been really careful to build this up since it doesn't feel like extra money to me. But now as a result of all of this, my sister isn't speaking to me, and my mom keeps making comments about how I've changed, and honestly, I'm starting to feel guilty, but also a bit resentful that my hard work is being treated like a shared resource. So seriously, am I really the jerk for not giving my sister $10,000? Because right now, I really don't know how to handle this. Okay, there's so many red flags in your family, dude. This really sucks. First off, holy crap, you should have never let your mom find out about how much money you made. I don't know if you let it slip or if you said something that you shouldn't have, but holy crap. She just spilled the beans to everybody. Like, dude, that would make me never trust her ever again. Like, I would never tell her any secrets about my life, pretty much ever. I'd keep that to myself and be like, oh, I simply can't trust you. Like, absolutely not. But I think more to the point, and I think the biggest red flag here, is your sister seriously trying to look at you and be like, wow, you need to help me out. Give me $10,000, please. Like, dude, that's a huge ask. That is not a small amount of money. Like, what is she talking about? Oh, you don't need it. It's just a small amount. It's like, bro, that is like 1/8 of what I made. What are we on about? And just because somebody made money off of a sale doesn't mean it's like, oh yeah, you're not gonna need this. I'm entitled to it instead because we're gonna get evicted. And it's like, I don't know, get a job, like maybe live in a place that's cheaper. Like, what do you want from me? Just because the original poster made a bunch of money doesn't mean that you're somehow being like oppressed and like restricted. It's like, oh, you're punishing me by not giving me $10,000. It's like, dude, you would still owe that no matter what. Just because I'm not giving you that money doesn't make it my fault. Like, holy crap, what's going on right now? So no, you're not the jerk for keeping the money that you, I don't know, made off of a sale. This money is literally none of their business. They have no claim over it. They have no stake in it. And the fact that they think they do is really toxic and incredibly telling. If you like Am I the Jerk and what we're doing over here, please check out Am I the Genius. It's going to be linked down below in the description. Just click and go ahead and subscribe to them. And also, if you have your own stories you want to submit, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you want to submit your own stories. We're reading them all the time and we're picking out the best ones, so trust me, we would love to hear what you have to say. My job literally is so weird when it comes to food allergies, specifically nut allergies, as I've never seen it be treated in this way ever before. And I'm honestly confused and I seriously need some insight because I don't know what to do here. This is basically where it all starts. Okay, so ever since the 2020 reopening, I've been working in more fine dining style restaurants all the way up until my current job, which is an expensive but extremely high volume bistro. We still have a lot of the same steps of service, crumbing, changing out the flatware between courses, etc. etc. But one huge difference is we're actually instructed not to prompt for allergies. If a guest tells us that they have an allergy, then we have a whole protocol for that, but we are not supposed to ask, and honestly it feels weird. But what's even weirder though is that the nature of people's allergies seems to be so entirely different from what I'm used to. In my whole history of serving, from the early days in crappy places where we weren't even trained to ask, but we would still get in trouble if an allergy came up and we had not asked about it, even to the nicer establishments where we were expected to ask every time. Whenever someone had a nut allergy, it was a big deal. Cross-contamination had to be avoided at all cost. And I remember growing up when I first learned of nut allergies, hearing things about other kids who couldn't even be near a nut. My impression was always that this is seriously a very big deal, and it always required extra measures to be safe. And I really want my guests to be safe as well. But all of a sudden though, at this place, everyone has the most relaxed, low-key nut allergy that I've ever heard of. Oh, the bread touched other bread with nuts? Well, no problem. They're in a basket together. Oh, that's fine. Yeah, no big deal. In fact, last night a woman ordered an entree that is literally covered in nuts and never even mentioned the allergy until it came to the table. And then when I tried to take it away, she insisted that she would just eat around them. So seriously, I've never even seen this with nut allergies until this restaurant. Some other allergies, sure, but not for nuts. Maybe gluten or dairy, of course. But nuts apparently is just a different story, and honestly, it's incredibly confusing. Okay, just to give like the original poster some insight here, if they really had a nut allergy, they would not be eating around any of that. They would either be leaving the restaurant or being like, whoa, wait a second, this is like really serious. Because bro, nut allergies are serious. And usually they lead to like people's throat closing up and them like dying. It's not like, oh, my stomach hurts like you would get from like a gluten intolerance or like, oh, I'm allergic to dairy. Like I'm lactose intolerant and like I can have milk, but it won't make my throat close up. I'm not gonna go into like anaphylactic shock suddenly, like holy crap. But with nut allergies, it's one of those things from my experience and just for like family members who have it, where like, yeah, it gets worse every single time. So these people don't have a nut allergy if they're saying, oh, I'll just eat around the nuts. Like if anything, they probably have a preference, and that's completely different. Like, bro, we're seriously trying to like make sure nobody dies in a restaurant, and you're trying to sit there and be like, oh, I've got a nut allergy, but I'll just eat around it. Like that truly is not a nut allergy. And I think people really should understand the difference, especially if they're gonna try and say stuff like that, because to almost like cosplay as someone who does have it just because you don't like them is honestly really weird. Am I the jerk for not removing my doormat? All because my neighbors say that it is scaring their kid. Because after I discovered they had literally thrown my doormat across the apartment building and down the stairs, all because they didn't like the doormat, it's really put me in a situation where I don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, so my wife and I, both in our 30s, have been living in our apartment for 4 years, and we are both horror movie fans. We have had an Art the Clown doormat from Spirit Halloween for about 2 years now, and it's honestly not even a Halloween decoration, it's just what we like. Well, last month at like the beginning of April, we had some neighbors move in across from us. They have 2 kids, one is a baby and the other one's like maybe 4 years old. The first time we met them was a couple of days after they moved in, and we were all bringing in groceries, and I introduced myself at that moment. I shook their hands and all of that. The dad then looks at me and says, "Still Halloween, huh?" And I just laughed it off because I knew he was talking about my doormat. Well, ever since then, we've come home 4 times to them flipping over our doormat, and we know it's them because we have a Ring camera. And honestly, we were fine letting them do it and just flipping it back over until a couple of days ago when we literally caught them doing it in person. We then asked them what the issue was, and apparently their son is super afraid of it. And even though the kid was right there and was acting completely fine, you know, not crying or anything like that, they still said, yeah, it's really scaring him. If I'm being honest, the only one that seemed agitated at all was the mom, who swore at us and rolled her eyes and was just generally really unpleasant. I haven't interacted with her much before or since, and my wife waited until they were inside and flipped it back over. I stayed out with the dad and talked it over, and he seemed fine. He seemed like he understood it was our space and he'd talk it over with his wife, and that his son was old enough to understand it couldn't hurt him. Well, this morning we walked out and saw that our doormat wasn't even flipped over. It was thrown outside of the stairwell. We live on the 4th floor, by the way, so it was a very deliberate thing. My wife really wants to report it to management, but I'm just honestly really tired of all of this. I kind of want to just throw it away, but I also want to keep it. So I don't know, I'm just confused, guys. Like seriously, what should I do here? Because right now I'm super frustrated. Okay, honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would make a montage of every time they've touched your property and send it right to management. I would tell them straight up, look, this is our property and they have no right to throw it away. I would not give a crap about that kid or the mom or anybody. If I want to have a doormat that has something creepy on it, then guess what? I can do that. Because bro, this is unacceptable. The first time would have been more than enough for me to be like, are you flipping over my doormat? Because what are you talking about? That is so inappropriate. I would almost be tempted to fight fire with fire, like throwing theirs out the window as well. Like, what are we doing here? So yeah, in my opinion, I think you absolutely should report them and essentially show the trail of them destroying your property. Because guess what? This is probably going to escalate. It sounds like you have some unhinged neighbors who are just weird, who literally can't just mind their own business and live their own life. So I think it's better to, like, I don't know, say something sooner than later instead of letting this get worse over time, because I guarantee you it probably will get worse. Am I the jerk for resenting my parents after my brother's graduation? Because my upbringing was so different than his, and honestly, it's really hitting a nerve and I just don't know what to do about it. Here's what happened. To start things off, I'm the older sister and I have a younger brother. A few days ago, my brother passed his final engineering exam. I called to congratulate him and I told him I was proud of him, and I joked that he was in a rough ride with the job market, but that he would be okay. We're not really that close, so it was a short call and not really emotive, but I am seriously very proud of him. Well, later that day, my mom called me and said she was relieved that both of her children were finally done studying and that she was proud of everything we had accomplished as college graduates. And honestly, that really hit a nerve. I reminded her that I didn't graduate from university like my brother did. I went to a technical school, which is considered different from a university degree in my country. I also have some post-graduation diplomas, but I still don't really feel accomplished. I didn't even go to my graduation ceremony because my father spent years telling me that technical degrees were lesser than university degrees, even though he only finished high school and dropped out of college himself. Both my brother and I have ADHD like my mom, and I struggled badly in high school and I had terrible grades, but nobody really helped me study or manage it. My brother, on the other hand, had neurologists, therapy, private tutors, and consistent academic support from childhood all the way through university. And of course, it was all paid for by my parents. My high school years and early 20s were awful. I struggled with my mental health a lot until I left home at 19 because my relationship with my father was so bad. And mind you, usually around here, you live with your parents until you graduate university. But I lived in an apartment alone because there's no such thing as student dorms. After bouncing between a few programs, I eventually studied design at a technical school. I graduated at 26 and I've been working ever since then. My parents still help me financially because my partner and I don't earn enough, while on the other hand, they're really well off and offer to do so. Our relationship is better now that I don't live with them, but I still feel a lot of resentment for how unsupported I was when I needed them the most. When I told my mom this, she just said that I could still study something else, and I told her that wasn't realistic right now because I'm literally almost 30 years old and my partner and I are expecting our first child. She then told me I needed to let it go and appreciate what I have now. I then just got upset and I hung up, and I haven't answered her calls ever since then. I feel angry, I feel jealous, and very guilty. I do appreciate the financial help they give me now, but part of me feels like it came way too late. I don't know if I should apologize and be more thankful, or if I'm justified in feeling hurt by the difference between how my brother was supported and how I was left to handle things on my own. What should I do? Okay, honestly, I see where you're coming from, and it does seem like you have a little bit of resentment towards your brother, but dude, it really does seem like she's trying to make an effort. Like, I don't know. It really does like come across as if like she's reaching out and she's trying to like be there and at least support you in some extent. Like, don't get me wrong. I don't know the nuances of your like relationship with your parents. We're only getting a brief window into it, but from what you're describing, like your parents did try to help you out, and it sounds like you guys have a better relationship now than you did when you were a kid. So in my opinion, like I just would not bother holding a grudge against them and being like, wow, my brother had it way easier than me. Where were you when I was a kid? Like all they can do is try to apologize and make it better, and it seems like they're trying to do that in a roundabout way. So no, I don't think you're the jerk for resenting your parents, but I think you might need to look at it from like a different perspective. Because in my opinion, based on what you're showing us, it does kind of seem like they're trying, and at least that, in my opinion, should be looked at favorably. Am I the jerk for not wanting to go out for dinner with my family after my dog literally passed away less than an hour before that? Because because right now I'm in shambles and yet my family is dismissing it and saying that I'm being overdramatic. And at this point, I really just don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, so to put it bluntly, my dog passed away this afternoon. It was sudden and awful, and I was with her when it happened. I've had her for years. She was basically my shadow, and I'm now completely wrecked. My family's visiting and staying at my home, and no less than an hour later, they started talking about dinner plans like it was a normal day. And when I said that I didn't think I could go, I got hit with, oh, it's just a dog. I mean, we leave tomorrow. And seriously, at this point, I can't even think about food, let alone sitting in a restaurant pretending to be okay. I tried to explain that I'm not trying to make it a big dramatic thing, but I seriously just lost a living being I love and I need a minute. And the response I got was basically that I'm being overly emotional. I then got in my car and I booked a hotel room. And I told them, you can stay at my place, but I'm not going to see them today or tomorrow. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because I really don't know what to do right now. Okay, holy crap, your family sucks. First of all, apparently the original poster added on that their nephew, who's 9 years old, possibly dropped like one of their medication pills out in like the yard, and they think that their dog ate it and that's what made the dog pass away. And if that's the case, then holy crap, I would be so angry about this. If your kid was the reason my dog suddenly passed away while you're visiting, then dude, I would be livid. Yeah, I'd be sad about the dog. I would be devastated. But if you don't think I'm gonna turn that frustration and sadness over to you and cuss all of you people out, then you're crazy, because that's unacceptable. That is unbelievably unacceptable. Never mind the fact that they're like, oh, it's just a dog. Come on. I mean, yeah, the dog's dead in the corner, but like, we leave tomorrow. Dinner's way more important. Like, these people are heartless. I would expect everybody to leave and go do anything else instead of being like, come on and go to dinner. What's the big deal? You only had something that you love and cherish pass away suddenly, probably because of my kid. Oops. Like, why are you being so dramatic? Bro, I just can't with these people. This sucks. So no, you're not the jerk. These people are idiots, dude. They are literally heartless monsters for acting like this. And if I was in your shoes, this would be like the perfect excuse to go no contact for quite a while. My life and my relationship is literally on the verge of a mental breakdown, as I am seriously trying to find a way to cope with my boyfriend's behavior because it has literally brought me to my breaking point. And now I really just don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, to start things off, my boyfriend has Asperger's. His communication is really bad, which I know is a trait of autism and it is normal. However, I'm constantly making these massive plans for like small day-to-day normal life. And I'm just exhausted trying to keep up with all of it. He also has to be right all the time. I can't say no to things even though he says that I can. But if I do, it turns into, well, you see, if you follow it your way, you're going to be wrong. And if I tell him why I disagree, it turns into hostility and we argue. He says, yeah, you can say no to things, but when I do, he's like, well, I forgot. Or apparently I have narcissistic traits, bipolar disorder, or suddenly some other mental health issue. Like, he's obsessed with trying to get me a mental health diagnosis. For context, I already have depression and anxiety, and I find stuff like this slowly destroying me. My hair is falling out, I have anemia, and I'm constantly battling with myself every single day anyways. I try to plan things with him, and we even share a Google Calendar where we add things in that we want to do. Now, he also gets in fights with his mom when she tries to make plans, and man, I'm always in the middle of it. Well, this morning, he said sorry because I dropped my phone, and somehow this turned into, well, apparently I was being hostile towards him, as I was just completely drained and tired. But it's like, dude, I just dropped my phone, it's not that serious. And of course, at this point, I got defensive. Now, I will say, he's nice a lot of the time, but every day it's always something. Either at work, his personal life, my kids, or my personal life. So how in the world am I gonna keep going on like this? Because I seriously just don't know what to do. Okay, I've got to be honest with you. I don't care about them having like an autism diagnosis or anything like that. There are plenty of people out there who have the exact same stuff that he does, and yet they're able to like actually adjust and be normally functioning. And I mean functioning in a sense of like, oh yeah, we're following social cues. We're doing the things we need to do to be a good partner and all that other stuff. But from the sounds of it, it really seems like your boyfriend is just straight up toxic, whether he's got autism or not, and that is so annoying. The biggest red flag for me is him being like, oh, I'm not wrong, you just have a mental health issue. And that is such a weird cop-out. Like, why would you look at your partner and be like, oh, you're a narcissist, you have bipolar disorder, we need to get you a mental health diagnosis? Like, that's just super toxic, and that's not an appropriate conversation to have with anybody. You can't just accuse someone of something like that just because you're losing an argument or because you've been proven wrong. Like, what a weirdo. That for me would be the first and only straw I would need to see to be like, okay, I don't want to be with this. But that also kind of begs the question, like, original poster, I'm not telling you to dump this guy, but like, bro, why are you with with this person. They sound exhausting, they sound incredibly annoying, and they literally, from the sounds of it, just don't like you. And I get it, you're trying to be like, oh, he's nice a lot of the times, but when he's not, he's literally a nightmare. Like, it really seems like you're holding on to like the small crumbs of like, oh, he was nice this one time, and ignoring the fact that he's constantly starting arguments, he's always being hostile towards you and projecting that onto you as if you're the one with the problem, and trying to be like, wow, we need to get you a mental health diagnosis. When in reality, this guy probably needs to go to therapy. Like, what's happening right now? So no, you're not the jerk. This is really toxic behavior. And the sooner you see that, the better off you will be, because you can find someone way better than this. Am I overreacting for not wanting my boyfriend to work at the same place as me? Because after he showed up with his resume in hand to my workplace, I honestly felt this sense of dread because I really just don't know what to do now. Here's what's going on. Okay, it's important to start off by saying that I already find the situation really delicate because I'm still on probation at my job. And in fact, it was even extended. And my boyfriend sometimes comes to like pick me up after work, so my coworkers already know who he is. He had previously applied for a supervisor position where I work and was politely rejected because they hired someone else. Well, recently that supervisor was let go and I mentioned it to my boyfriend, but I also told him it was internal information and that he wasn't supposed to know or use it. Well, guess what? The next day he showed up at my workplace to drop off his resume. I was the one at the front desk who had to receive him, and I felt really uncomfortable and honestly a bit frustrated. To me, it lacked discretion and it put me in an awkward position. I understand he's going through a tough time. He recently left his job for a better opportunity, but it fell through at the last minute because they decided his professional background didn't meet their requirements. So now he's unemployed, and I get that he might feel discouraged and see my workplace as a last resort, but even still, I feel like couples working in the same place can be tricky, especially in my situation. I felt so uncomfortable that I ended up texting my manager just to let her know that the resume they received was from my boyfriend, just to try and stay transparent. And now I'm kind of at a loss and I seriously just don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, I think it is wildly inappropriate for your boyfriend to be trying to work at the same place as you. Like, dude, you literally told him this like very specific, like private information, and then he walks in the next day and says, here's my resume. And it's like, bro, what are we doing right now? This is so stupid. So no, you're not the jerk for being pissed off at this. I would be so annoyed. And I think the way your boyfriend's acting is really out of line. My toxic managers literally do nothing at work, constantly barking orders at me and my coworkers, while also doing nothing to assist us when we're incredibly busy. But after my manager sends me home after he thinks I'm not doing any work, this restaurant falls into disarray, as they literally have to close this restaurant over the summer just to figure out how they're gonna save their business. And I'm honestly so satisfied walking away from this job because these people were the absolute worst. Here's what happened. I want to start things out by saying that I worked at a restaurant, and at this restaurant we had a front salad bar, a buffet with a salad bar, as well as things like a juice bar and ice cream counter, and a small alcohol room with a bar. And this place was so popular even though it was expensive, but somehow we were still underpaid, understaffed, and poorly managed. Now, a woman I will call Jenny is the daughter and the only child of the owners of the restaurant. She is extremely spoiled, she almost always gets her way, and she has a temper where she will get pissed off and just lay into the person for an hour straight. She used to come in screaming at everyone for nothing, and straight up made awful or just nasty jokes. She would push people to come in sick and then ask why they were so slow. You know, just your typical nightmare manager. Now, one of the kitchen managers, who we will call Marco, is the son of a family friend and a beloved member of the community. His management consisted of micromanaging, criticizing our work, blaming random people for things, giving extra time constraints for tasks, encouraging everyone to smile, and going around asking people while they're in the middle of working their 3 jobs when they wanted to come in the next day or if they'd like to cover a shift on Saturday or whatever. He would forget to do things and then blame other people. Then he would go around criticizing people for their time management or responsibility. Anytime we reported that something was broken or something wasn't working, he just told us to figure it out and nothing would be done about it until Jenny came in screaming at everyone and narrowed it down to Marco. Now, we had other managers come in and out, but they simply couldn't take it. There were people who were suddenly hired to take on big positions despite having no idea what they were doing, or join with less than a full day of training just because the place was desperate. The waitresses were paid less than $4 an hour, and some of them were doing part of the dishwasher's duties, front manager duties, cleaning jobs including kitchen and employee bathroom, and I want to say that dishwashing was the worst, as 3 different people would come to work drunk or high every day just to tolerate everything. My coworker, who I will call DJ, kept up even when other dishwashers weren't working. He helped me or other waitresses clean and literally had to monitor food that was cooking, and he'd keep track of orders because the manager Marco and the chef wanted to mess around or go stand by the door and smoke. There were days where staff members would break down or get sick pulling a double shift, and he did everything for them. I mean, there was no choice. Now, my job was preparing and filling food items for the main salad bar in front every day, and some days I also did salad bar in the buffet. I had other things to do as part of my normal salad buffet job, including making food for reservations, preparing and stocking the juice bar, and helping move stock into the freezers and the fridge. On top of that, I was packing non-salad food for delivery and takeout, helping maintain and stock up to half the buffet, helping waitresses keep up with serving and bussing, doing ice cream and desserts, cleaning the whole kitchen and storage areas and customer bathrooms, helping the bar staff, helping at the front desk whenever I was out, and preparing ingredients or fetching things for the normal chef and buffet chefs. I did all of this for little more than a minimum wage. I fell down every day because I was running on wet floors, and I had a heat stroke and even had to go to the ER for injuries. On buffet days, I had a partner, but that just simply didn't matter. She just stood around right in front of the manager, Marco, talking to her cousin who worked there while just watching me work. And both she and Marco would take breaks every now and then to criticize my work or my speed. Everything was held together by DJ and me. We were teenagers on Rockstar drinks, so we took whatever was coming to us. We kept everything going so well that we got scheduled to work almost every day and then every weekend. Jenny gave us free soda privilege, and we got raises 2 times in 5 months, which were only 10 cents, but it did look good to me because my dad praised all of my paychecks. He didn't know what was going on and that I was working crazy hours, and he just thought I was overpaid. Now, most of the customers were very sweet, so we tried our best to be of service, and a lot of them were regulars or people who came in to support Marco or everyone. There was always so much pressure on DJ and me. Also, DJ isn't white, and he would always get these inappropriate comments and jokes, and Marco and Jenny either did nothing or were the offenders themselves. Most of the criticism or Marco's projection went to him, despite him doing exactly what he was supposed to be doing and only occasionally messing up due to extreme stress or time constraint. After a certain point, almost every criticism was race-based in some kind of way. Well, one horrible Saturday, there were 3 times as many reservations as usual, and this is on top of all the bars and buffet being completely open. I clocked in and I found out one of the managers let go DJ the afternoon before, and absolutely nobody knew why, including DJ, and I'm really assuming it was Marco. I already had zero hope for the day, and the only thing fueling me was the customers and my paycheck, of course. Well, in just the first hour, I passed Marco at least 5 times trying to get things done. There was one time we accidentally made eye contact while I was helping out a waitress, but at some point I went into the freezer in the back to help load some ice cream in, and he happened to walk in there at the same time that I was standing there for like 3 seconds doing nothing according to him, waiting for my coworker to bring in the dolly. He gave me this frustrated look like, "Get back to work," and he then caught me maybe half an hour later while I was coming into the back of the kitchen near the freezer to mop up some spilled water. The final time he caught me, I was in the freezer again, looking at the inventory to see what fruit we had enough of, because I could only serve what we had enough of in case people requested more. And it was at this point that Marco apparently had had enough. He said to me, "The place is insanely busy and you're just in here standing in the freezer for like 4 hours. You need to go home." I gave him this look because I was completely stunned, and he just reiterated that I was done for the night. But you know what? I was not going to argue with Marco. This was not my problem. I just said thanks, I took my apron off, and I headed out. Both the employees' doors were blocked by trash cans, and my partner was standing there with a whole cart of things talking to her cousin. So I went to use the main side door in the front of the restaurant. Jenny saw me and asked where I was going, so I just put a smile on my face and said, "Oh man, Marco's the best guy ever. He just randomly came up to me and told me to take the night off." Well, when I said this, Jenny's face went from confused to shocked, all the way to livid in the span of like 1 second. She quickly told me, "Oh, don't go just yet," to which she screamed into the kitchen looking for Marco. Now, I pretended not to hear her over the music and customers, and I just turned around and decided to leave. I then got over 10 phone calls, but I simply let my phone ring. I waited until my partner updated her Facebook status that basically said, "Oh, we're finally closed, good night," or something like that. And I finally texted Marco back and gave an apology that sucked up in the most condescending way, but I did it in a way that was personal that only he would understand if he were to show it to someone else. Well, I came back the next morning and it was a complete disaster. Marco and Jenny came in looking dead tired because they spent the rest of the night and overtime busting their butt, trying to keep things going. There were actually dishes and trash cans piled up, and both the buffet and kitchen were wrecked because Jenny and her dad didn't want to keep the workers late and pay them overtime. As a result, the restaurant had to close for the summer. They posted all these job opportunities in schools and on Facebook, and eventually opened back up. But I never answered, and DJ didn't accept amends, so it was a whole spiral. Because of me leaving and DJ being fired, they had to close down their ice cream and minimize their buffet, and they now close earlier because they simply can't handle it. There are less customers supporting Marco, and there were even customers saying they aren't coming back until Marco or Jenny leaves. There was a waitress who joined during my time there, and it was her first job ever, and now she is the only previous employee left, and she ended up getting appointed as a manager at some point. I think they had to offer her a lot of money to stay because she bought a new house. Marco is the only other manager now, and Marco is still asking me to come back. And since I deleted my Facebook, I kept that phone number open and prepaid service on my old phone just for the purpose of reading his text messages during my lunch break. Because Marco and Jenny made my life a living nightmare, and honestly, seeing them suffer is kind of satisfying. Dude, imagine working at a place that literally acts like this. This is some high school crap. Not only do you have Marco micromanaging everything you do, but you've also got Jenny, the most useless manager on the planet, screaming and freaking out about all the dumbest things you could possibly think of. And the fact that they fired DJ over nothing. Like, dude, that guy was keeping the place in order. You really just got rid of your best worker. I can't stand managers like this, dude. It's so annoying because they don't do their job and then they rely on people they're underpaying, who they're also just like mistreating the entire time they're working there. Like, seriously, this sucks. I hate jobs like this. So good for you for not going back because that place sounded awful. And the fact that they're still trying to find staff and beg you to come back is the best evidence you need to prove that you absolutely were not the problem, whereas Marco and Jenny 100% were. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My sister is demanding that my husband provide free transportation for all of her wedding guests, ignoring the fact that he runs a transportation business, and he would have to shut things down for free just to make it happen. And when I told her no, that's not gonna happen, she said that I'm not being supportive. And at this point, I'm honestly not sure what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my sister is getting married soon. I was at her place helping with some wedding prep when she suddenly says, I want to announce free transportation for all of my wedding guests just to make it look classy. I then was like, okay, that's nice, but how are you gonna pull that off? She said to me, well, since your husband owns a transportation business and has a few cars, it'll be easy for him to handle it. So I said to her, okay, he will be here soon to pick me up, and when he comes, you guys can talk and maybe bargain out the price. She then cuts me off and goes, no, I don't want to pay. I mean, I want him to offer it for free to my guests. And when she said that, I just looked at her. She then added on that if I talk to him, he'll accept it because he listens to me. I then asked her, well then why do you want to promise free services to people when you're not the one providing them? She then said to me, oh, I have rich friends I invited for the wedding, and I think you know what that means. I just want to make it look so classic. You can talk to him about it. I then told her straight out, I'm not going to convince my husband to pause his business, offer up his cars, as well as fuel, drivers, and time all for free just so you can look good in front of her rich friends. Well, when I said that, she said I'm not being supportive to her, and at this point, I'm not sure what to do. Oh my gosh, this is some serious entitlement. Imagine being so entitled that you're like, oh yeah, your husband's business? I need him to stop production and miss out on thousands of dollars in any kind of payment just to cater to my wedding. Like seriously, you are not that important. The fact that she wants to be like, oh yeah, you can talk to him, he'll listen to you. And it's like, yeah, of course he's gonna listen to her. That's his wife, dude. He's gonna hear this garbage offer and be like, no, I'm not gonna do that. That's insane. So if I was in your shoes, I would tell her, no, that's not gonna happen, and then leave it at that. Because what she's asking from you is completely insane. Am I the jerk for not helping my coworker with her project after she literally got a promotion after taking credit for my idea? Because right now I'm being called uncooperative, and at this point I'm just so burnt out and so frustrated. Here's what's going on. I'm a 24-year-old female and I work at a marketing agency with this coworker who I will call Rachel for the sake of the story. We started around the same time and we were pretty friendly until last month. We were both working on separate campaigns for different clients. I had this idea for a social media strategy that involved partnering with local businesses. I mentioned it to Rachel during lunch and she seemed interested. Well, 2 weeks later, Rachel presents her idea to our boss and it's literally the exact same strategy I told her about. She got praised for being innovative and got assigned to a bigger client because of it. I confronted her privately and she just said that great minds think alike and that she came up with it independently. I know that's BS because I had already started researching local businesses before I even told her. Now she's working on this huge project with tight deadlines and keeps asking me to help her with research and brainstorming. She says that we're a team and we should help each other out. But I told her I'm too busy with my own work to help. She's been struggling and our boss asked me why I'm not being more collaborative, and I just said I have my own deadlines to meet. Well, she's been passive aggressive ever since then and told other people I'm being uncooperative. But why should I help someone who stole my idea? So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because I really just don't know what to do. Oh man, I don't blame you for a second. The second someone steals my idea and tries to pass it off as their own is the second I no longer want anything to do with them. It is so frustrating. And it's always the same type of person person, the one that's always a leech for good ideas but never comes up with anything on their own, which is exactly why they're struggling. Like, look at them. They're like, hey, by the way, can you help me out? Let's brainstorm. We're working together. And it's like, why? So you can take credit for that as well? So truly, I don't blame you for a second for shutting her down and saying, no, I'm not going to help you, because if I was in your shoes, I would do the exact same thing. Am I the jerk for pounding on my neighbor's gate until they move their car? Because they literally were ignoring me on purpose just to avoid moving anything around. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm moving into a townhouse, but I have some weeks of overlap with my old rental for a little bit, so I've been between the two places and not at the townhouse all the time. Well, because of this, my neighbor decided this meant that he could park his extra car in my spot. I arrived one night at around 8:30 p.m. to find him parked in my assigned spot. I left a note on the windshield and I parked on the street overnight. By mid-afternoon the next day, the car was still in my spot, so I went and I knocked on his gate. I could see him and his wife inside, and the wife was right next to the door, but they just ignored me. I went back 3 times to knock and they just kept ignoring me. I even tried to call the tow truck, but no one would tow from a private lot. The third time, I just pounded on the gate incessantly, and I shouted that I knew they could see me until they answered. But that time I was pretty heated and I said, move your car and don't park in my spot ever again. Well, the guy did move his car, but there was no apology and just a big eye roll. This is the first time that I met them, by the way, and I worry that I came in too hot and I ruined the neighbor relationship. I also wasn't that frustrated until they ignored me while I knocked, but that just completely pissed me off, and I kind of lost my cool. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I think I may have gone a little bit overboard. Okay, honestly, these people suck. I would have done the exact same thing, dude. They literally were ignoring you, dude. Like, that is so frustrating. It's one thing to be like, oh yeah, they said some nasty things and they treated me really badly, but for them to ignore you and pretend like you don't even exist when you're blatantly banging on their gate, like, that is so rude. And in my opinion, I think that's way worse. So yeah, these people were giant pieces of crap and you should have not had to deal with that at all. My former tenants burned down my garage in a way that made it completely uninhabitable, forcing me to redo this house from the ground up just to make it habitable. Here's what happened. So I had been renting a home to a family for about 8 years. I rented through an agency, so I tried to be as hands-off as possible, but I still helped out when I could. Any major appliance breakdowns or issues were addressed as quickly as I could. Now, I also would like to believe that what goes around comes around, both the good and bad alike. But these people had some interesting problems though. At one point, the stove broke and would only go on high, which is not a big deal to fix, maybe $80 in parts. But the thing is, they didn't tell me about it. Instead, they decided to leave oil in a pan and walked away to fold laundry. The grease then caught fire and destroyed the microwave and left smoke damage. And yes, I was very pissed off, but things happen, so I just let it slide. About 13 months ago, they sent me a text message saying there was a fire, it's bad. Well, the garage was totally destroyed. The fire investigator said a cigarette likely started the blaze since it was tossed into a pile of trash. But the tenants didn't even know the house was on fire because, get this, they removed the batteries from all the smoke detectors because they wouldn't stop beeping. Well, obviously they had to leave since the house was uninhabitable. We didn't straight up evict them, they did it to themselves. My rental agency never did a final walkthrough and never collected their keys. Well, the house has been under restoration ever since. It's been about $90,000 in insurance claims, and now my premium has quadrupled. Now, in an effort to make it presentable again, my family and I have been painting and replacing the needed items. It turns out their teenage son let him into the house at some point and actually kicked in some walls and carved his name into about 20 places in the house. There were many other things, but I'm trying to keep this brief. Now, as for the revenge, this weekend I was in the attic replacing bathroom vents. When I went into the attic, I found 3 boxes stored away. One of them has an NES with a dozen games or so, and the others were labeled memories with their son's name on it. They contained baby blankets, stuffed animals, and other trinkets. Well, I took special joy in placing the boxes out for bulk trash to pick up, and I smiled as I watched them get crushed by the trash truck. Because if you don't care about other people's stuff, then you cannot expect them to care about yours. Wow, I can't believe you allowed them to stay in your house after they literally caught your kitchen on fire. Like, if that's not foreshadowing of what's coming, I don't know what is, because that is crazy, dude. I would have immediately found some reason to get them out of there, because that's not just being stupid, that's like straight up negligence. Like, holy crap, I would lose my mind over that. But I love the way you handle this, and I love the revenge you got back on them, because one day they're gonna realize that's missing and not know what actually happened. An entitled Karen hits my car and drives off. But once I catch up to her, she literally tries to tell me that she didn't hit anything and that she didn't do anything wrong. Things got so bad that I literally had to tell her I was gonna call the cops if she didn't tell the truth. Here's what happened. Okay, to set the stage, I get sideswiped because this lady tried changing into my lane as she scrapes just underneath the gas cap. So I think to myself, whatever, we'll pull over and exchange information and that will be that. But no, she continues to drive. We get to a stoplight and I'm laying on my horn and she turns her entire head away from me with the the window rolled up while I'm literally staring directly into her driver's side window. We do this for about 5 minutes until she pulls into a restaurant. I snap a picture of the license plate because she hasn't gotten out yet, and I walk up and I tell her, "Hey, you hit my car." She then looks flabbergasted. "No, I didn't. If I hit something, I would know." I then tell her, "I've been following you for 2 miles laying on my horn. If you can't hear me and you can't realize you hit someone on the road, then you shouldn't be driving." She then doubles down, but I just get fed up. I don't yell, but I get very mean until she finally gives me her insurance information after I threaten to call the cops. She then tells me, "Oh, I've never been in an accident ever." And I say to her, "Well, there's a first time for everything," and I walk away while she says sorry. So it really makes me wonder, why would you lie and then backtrack and then try to leave, only to then finally give me your insurance information and apologize? We could have handled this like adults if you just owned up to it, but instead you forced me to nearly call the police, all because you couldn't fathom that you actually made a mistake. Okay, honestly, I'm kind of surprised you didn't call the cops anyways and be like, "Oh yeah, this lady absolutely hit me and she's driving off," because at that point it really is a hit and run and she deserves to get in trouble. Like, if anything, this idiot absolutely got off easy, dude, like seriously. But either way, good for you for following her, because that is absolutely something that you need to take care of and not something you should ever let slide. Am I the jerk for refusing to be my friend's maid of honor after she picked someone else first who ended up quitting? Because right now I just feel like a second option and I honestly just feel very hurt. And at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. So my friend Jessica and I have been friends since high school, and it's important to note that we always talked about being each other's maid of honor when we got married. Well, she got engaged 6 months ago, and she actually asked her college roommate Mia to be her maid of honor instead. Now I was hurt, but I didn't say anything because it's her choice. And instead she made me a regular bridesmaid. Well, last week Jessica calls me crying because Mia moved across the country for a job and can't do all the maid of honor duties. And this is where Jessica asked me if I would take over as the maid of honor. But when the question was posed, I told her no. I explained that she chose Mia over me initially, and I wasn't interested in being her second choice. She said she picked Mia because she's more organized and not because she likes her more. I then said that I understand, but I'm not comfortable stepping into the role now. She then got upset with me and said I'm being petty and ruining her wedding. Her fiance even texted me saying that I'm being immature. Some of our mutual friends think that I should just do it since we were close, but I feel like she made her choice and now has to deal with the consequences. So am I the jerk for not wanting to be the new maid of honor? Because right now I'm honestly not sure what to do. Okay, honestly, I kind of see where you're coming from, but also I guarantee you this is going to change your relationship with Jessica from like the ground up. So honestly, I don't think you're the jerk for turning her down, but I do think you got to be ready for the consequences, which is something that Jessica also has to deal with as well. Jessica could have called you and explained why she's going with Mia, but instead she just kind of picked Mia and said, "Oh, you could be a bridesmaid instead." When it's like, wait a second, we've been best friends for a long time, and now you're going to turn your back on what we agreed upon? And no, you should not be like held hostage to any kind of crap you say in high school. That's not what I'm saying at all. But if the original poster and their friend Jessica really are as good of friends as they're saying, then this really should have been discussed in detail. Like, I just don't understand why it wasn't. So in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk for turning it down, but like I said earlier, this is absolutely going to change everything in your friendship. And I think regardless of what you do, you kind of have to be ready for some kind of fallout. An entitled Karen spills her beer all over my wife's feet while we're at a concert. But instead of owning up to it and admitting she was wrong, she decided to turn around and pretend like it didn't happen. So I got some revenge by literally pouring an entire cup of beer all over her seat, forcing her to sit in wet beer the entire show, leaving her entire lower body absolutely soaked. Here's what happened. So we were at the recent Wu-Tang Clan show at Madison Square Garden the other night, and this small group of people in front of us seemed to be having a great time. It was an odd pairing of two middle-aged folks and what I'm assuming was their 30-something-year-old daughter. Honestly, I'm not really sure. Anyways, you could tell that she was a type, taking selfie videos every 5 minutes, and had no idea why she was there other than to party, which to be fair, that's fine, and I don't really care if people do it regardless of how cringy I find it. But she was flailing herself around and dancing like she was next to Oracle of Delphi, and this is where we had a problem. She had set a large beer cup on her seat, and my wife's seat was right behind hers. Well, about 1 minute after she set it there, she did one of her prophecy reading maneuvers and actually knocked the beer over backwards onto my wife's feet and filling one of her shoes partially. It also splashed over onto one of my buddies sitting in the row on the other side of my wife's seat. This woman child looked back at me and my wife in horror for 1 second, realized that she messed up, and then decided that she was going to go on about her business and ignore the issue completely. She did not apologize, she did not acknowledge it, she just kept on going. And this was the moment that upset me the most. Sure, getting a beer down your shoe sucks, but what really sucks is when the person who does it has absolutely no remorse for what they had done, accident or not, and just chooses not to apologize. So I did what any normal person would do in that situation. I picked up the beer cup cup, I removed the lid and I dumped it all over her seat, and a small amount over the front of her feet as well. She looked back for a brief second when her feet got wet, and we met our eyes, as I was doing my best customer service style smile for her while holding the now empty beer cup over her seat. She quickly looked away and continued her dancing, choosing to continue to ignore the situation. Now, the best part was her knowing she couldn't sit down, but also not wanting to tell the two that she was with about what had happened, because she had already accepted mentally that she wasn't going to admit fault. So she stood there awkwardly when the other two sat down, and after a minute, the guy pulled her down into her seat after she was hesitating for so long. The beer was oozing out of the cushion the second she sat down, and she convulsed and writhed around in the beer chair for a minute while being held into it by her male companion, all before standing up with a completely soaked butt full of beer. Her pants were wet from the belt line down past her knees. She continued to get pulled down into her seat by the guy multiple other times before the show ended. Now, I don't really think I've had a small petty revenge work out so well in my favor before, so to be completely honest, it was quite thrilling. Thankfully, I was able to put a smile on my wife's face after she saw her stand back up the first time, because this idiot absolutely deserved it. Oh man, this lady deserved it. This wasn't even petty revenge, this was so needed. This lady literally knocked her beer all over you guys, and instead of being like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, or even something similar, she decides to be like, oh yeah, this isn't happening, and just continues dancing. It's like, dude, what are you doing? At least show some level of common courtesy. Don't sit there and be like, oh yeah, this is not happening, nothing to worry about here. So in my opinion, the fact that you emptied your beer cup all over her seat was completely necessary, because this Karen, in my opinion, got exactly what she deserved. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to keep helping out my mom after I was pushed out of my job when she sold the company? Because right now she's saying that I owe her simply because I'm her daughter, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, for a bit of context, I was working at my mom's office for 7 years, managing everything and also helping my mom with anything written down, as she's not native to the country we live and worked at together. That would mean writing papers, correcting her grammar, etc., so that she would maintain a professional outlook to the outside world. And this is nothing much of work, honestly, especially when it came to writing, as I was born and raised here. I know it's not easy for an immigrant to adapt to a new culture and still be successful in her career. It's been over 30 years now for her, and she's basically fluent speaking, went to become a business owner, and managed to build a house, which can be very expensive in the area we live in. A couple of months ago, she sold her business but stayed there as an employed CEO. The new owner decided that I was not needed anymore, and for the sake of selling it, she went along with it. Meanwhile, I took over my dad's business, which was being abandoned for years due to his dementia, and I'm trying to build everything up from scratch while also taking care of him, as I live close by to him. My parents live separately, so she can't really see him every day due to the distance of her work and living environment, and also, I'm the one in charge of family finances, taxes, etc., and this is for the both of them on top of all of this. But now, my mom wants me to keep helping her writing papers and letters remotely, and you know what? I refused, pointing out that I'm no longer part of her workforce, and that I have a lot of other obligations to attend to. She keeps getting angry at me, telling me that it's my duty as her daughter to help her out, that she pays for the house with the money that she makes, and that I'm the one benefiting from it, as I will inherit parts of it. So she says she's obliged to demand for me to partake, which means coming in on weekends to check her work for now, and then later on working from a laptop remotely to proofread everything. I told her that's a task that she now has to give somebody else, which she refuses, partly to save her face, but also because she's not good at handling giving direct orders to others besides me, I guess. Also, this takes away from my free time, not to mention having to adapt to their new software and network environment, which by the way, I'm not even getting paid for. So am I the jerk for drawing a line? Because right now I'm honestly incredibly frustrated. Dude, your mom threw you under the bus the second she sold that company off. She literally sacrificed her kids so that she could sell the company and make a quick buck. But now she's realizing, oh crap, my daughter is the reason all of this worked. Like, you literally were the quiet person in the background holding all of this together. And now that you're not doing that stuff that you used to do, she's now trying to guilt trip you into doing it as some kind of like, oh, you owe me. You're my daughter. You're gonna get part of my house and inheritance. And that is crazy toxic in my opinion. Like, dude, what's going on? At least in the previous setup, you were getting paid for your services. Now she wants you to do it for free on your free time on the weekends. Like, absolutely not. You better hire somebody else to do that, because that is not okay with me. So to the original poster, no, you are definitely not the jerk because I would do the exact same thing. Today, I messed up by disclosing my coworker's salary to the wrong person, causing a butterfly effect of so many bad things happening to me that honestly is making me regret the next 3 weeks I have to work at this job. Here's what's going on. To start things out, I'm changing jobs and relocating in about 3 weeks. In my current position, I was working interim open positions for my company until a permanent full-time worker got hired, and my company didn't compensate me much for these roles. As a matter of fact, the boss paid me less than what was verbally agreed upon, and when I asked about it, she replied, "Oh, I said up to this certain amount," which was, by the way, a complete lie. She verbally told me something that was much higher, and this is all my fault for agreeing to all of this and for continuing to show up and give 100% of myself. Currently, all the roles have been filled, and I'm back to the role that I was initially hired for. Well, the new employee told me her salary. I didn't even have to ask her, and you know what? I was crushed, which then leads me to how I messed up. I vented to a coworker who had been there for over 20 years and has a higher rank than a new employee. I ranted about my salary and the new employees and how it was not fair, how the company sucks and all this other stuff. Well, the coworker slash supervisor I was ranting to became livid. She began to rant and vent that the new employee is making about $1 less than her. The coworker then tells me that she is calling the CEO so that she can vent to them and perhaps get a raise for herself since it's been 4 years. She also told me about how much of a better job I've done with these interim roles and that the company pretty much screwed me over. Now, I didn't know any of the following had happened, and quite frankly, I forgot about the salary thing, but all of this was about 2 weeks ago. But yesterday, in the meantime, the coworker I talked to proceeded to email the CEO and forward the message to the Human Resources Director. The Human Resources Director tells the boss, who then tells the new employee that a supervisor emailed the CEO upset about her salary. And because of this, the new employee confronts me about it. She doesn't know which supervisor emailed the CEO. She just knows that she told me about her salary and that she had her secretary handle paperwork with her salary information. And while I listened and denied everything, I felt so humiliated. I went to the coworker and I pretty much called her an idiot for exposing me, but her excuse was that she thought I had already relocated and would not be exposed. I told her that if anyone comes to me, I will deny we had a conversation. Well, next week she will be on a vacation for a month, and I have 3 weeks left of this job and I intend to complete them. But I really feel like a total jerk for getting emotional and venting to the wrong person. I do truly feel bad for the new employee, as it's not her fault because she really deserves her rate. But either way, that's a lesson learned because I will never make that mistake twice ever again. Okay, honestly, I think the whole situation where it's like, oh, you can't talk about your salary with anybody else, like that's incredibly stupid and really dumb. Because then you get situations like this. You have a supervisor who's only making $1 more than this like low-level entry employee. And I don't know about you, but that's really messed up. So honestly, I would not beat yourself up over this. Because if this new employee has any problems with you, they should take it up with the company they're working for and not with you. Because clearly they're not paying people fair, and that is absolutely not your fault. An entitled jerk manspreads in a way that literally takes up all my space, forcing me to get my spouse involved, who absolutely shuts him down. Here's what happened. Okay, so my wife and I are currently on a nearly 8-hour flight. We are in the premium section where you get somewhat larger seats and way more legroom. It's not as cushy as first class, but it's way better than economy. Now, I'm in my 30s, I'm 5'10", and I'm plus size. I'm always so careful to make sure I'm not taking anyone's space on a plane, even if it is uncomfortable. I'm supposed to be in a middle seat, but when I get there, there's already a man sitting in the middle spot next to who I can only assume is his wife. So I just take the aisle seat, which is no big deal. I prefer that, to be completely honest. And my spouse was seated a couple of rows away. Now, the man looks like he's probably 5'4", in his 70s, and has a small build. In a premium seat, he basically has a swimming pool of space to lounge around in. So tell me why this man, who took up my entire armrest and about 4 inches of my space, had his entire body pressed against mine, despite me seeing that he had room between him and his wife, and most egregious of all, put his one foot like 6 inches into my leg room. Also, at one point, he motioned like he was trying to get at his seatbelt, but just kind of ended up pinching at my upper thigh, but then didn't even put his seatbelt on. It's like gross. He also had AirPods in and seemed to be pretending to sleep. Plus, being a woman sitting alone means that I don't trust how he would react if I said something. My first step was to put my foot exactly on the border of my seat when he readjusted. That way, he couldn't take the space back. But you know what? He put his foot directly against mine, and every 20 seconds or so, he would bump his foot against mine again and again. Well, I started texting my spouse, and she does the coolest thing ever. She tells me she'll trade seats with me, and if he tries the same thing with her, she will start playing footsies with him. Now, here's the thing about my wife you really need to know. My wife is a 6'4" bearded trans woman. She has a voice like Johnny Cash, and to a creepy man in his 70s, this will absolutely read as male. So if this guy wants to intimidate a woman, he can do it to someone who will dish it out right back at them, but 5 times creepier. Well, I told her not to worry, and that I would put a blanket blanket between us as it was no big deal. So the blanket goes down, his foot immediately retreats, but then this guy starts tapping his foot to the music, but he's doing it pressed up against my foot. So he's basically just rubbing my foot up and down with his foot. I then yanked my foot back instinctively because I felt like I was going to puke. I then sicked my wife on him, and bless her heart, she was absolutely willing to swap seats and put this guy in his place. Wow, this guy is a piece of garbage. First of all, your wife is awesome for wanting to switch seats and shut this guy down, because yes, he's being super creepy. He's getting a little too touchy-feely in my opinion, and that absolutely is not okay. So yeah, this guy was a creep, and I'm so sorry I had to deal with that because that was completely inappropriate. An entitled jerk tries to trick me one too many times into giving him free drinks. This guy even goes as far as saying that he's entitled to one by law, despite the fact that we only give out free drinks to actual customers. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I work in an amusement arcade, and we offer free drinks and snacks for paying customers. Some people try and abuse this by coming in, asking for something, and then they leave once they have it. Or we've also had supposed homeless people coming in, asking for drinks and snacks because they're homeless. When I first started and wasn't so savvy, a guy came in and asked for a coffee, and not knowing any better, I gave him a coffee, whereafter he just walked out immediately. The same guy came in this morning and went straight to the customer toilet where he spent 10 minutes, all before coming out and politely asking for a Coke. I say to him, sure, take a seat and I'll bring it over once you're playing. And I said that as I carried on filling in my paperwork. He then went out and sat down and just sat rubbing his eyes. 5 minutes later, he came back to the bar and said, my mouth is so dry. Can I have a Coke now, please? And he asked me with a big smile on his face. I said to him, well, sure, once you're playing. And I repeated this politely. The smile disappeared from his face as he said, I'm entitled to a drink by law. But I shot back at him and I said, no, you're not. They're for paying customers only. But he repeated himself, saying he's entitled by law to have one. But I just politely said back, no, you're definitely not. They're for playing customers and you haven't played yet. Start playing and you can have a drink. He then turned around and headed to the door, telling me to go F myself, and I followed him as I needed to unlock the door. He then turned before leaving and he said to me, why won't you let me have just one Coke? But I just responded by saying they're for customers only again. And he says to me, but I am a customer. But I just said to him, well, you came in and used the toilet and you haven't played a machine. So no, the refreshments are for playing customers only. He then called me a fat idiot and said once again that he's entitled to a drink by law. But I said to him, no problem, go ahead and find a cop and report me, all before closing the door. But the best part about this is that when I went to use the toilet myself, I found out that this upstanding citizen had peed all over the floor. And honestly, I'm not surprised by this behavior. Oh man, this guy was either homeless or drunk or somewhere in between, because this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Imagine going into a place and taking advantage of some guy who's new, only to then go in the next day and be like, oh, I deserve one. Why can't you give me a Coke just this one time? And it's like, oh, I don't know, buddy. Maybe it's because you stole a coffee yesterday and now you're trying to get a Coke from me. Like, people like this really get under my skin. Why can't you pay for the Coke like everybody else? Like, if you're playing the games and you're actually there for the right reasons, then sure, you can get it for free. But you're not doing that. You're literally just trying to cheat the system and take advantage of it. You're trying to steal without saying the word, oh yeah, I'm stealing. So honestly, good for you for the way you handled this, because this guy was an entitled piece of garbage. My idiotic company has a stupid travel policy that costs me way more money than it should have. So I decided to maliciously comply by returning the favor in a way that they will never figure out, costing them hundreds of dollars in the process. Here's how I did it. A few months ago, I had to travel for work. Some cost-saving measures had been implemented recently, and I was required to have a funding letter from the financial department so that they could allocate funds appropriately, even though my travel was authorized by my supervisor and required for the company business. And it's like, okay, I'll jump through some hoops, whatever. I get the funding letter and travel a couple of hours to my home away from home. Halfway through my trip, my work schedule opens up as I have a few days off, but I know I will be working more the following week. Since I'm only a few hours from home, I decide to check out of my hotel, drive home to spend the weekend with my family, then drive back the following week when I actually have work to do. This saves the company paying for a few days for the hotel and per diem, and I get time with my family. This is a win-win, right? Well, no, this is completely wrong. When I submit my travel claim to financial, it counts it as 2 separate trips. The problem is, I have one funding letter, which covers the dates of my travel but doesn't cover 2 trips, even though both trips are inside the travel window in the funding letter. This then blows up and takes about a month and a half to get sorted out, during which time I had to pay off my company credit card for the travel expenses incurred using my own funds. Eventually, the money was all properly allocated, and I got reimbursed for my interest-free loan to the company. But you know what? After that, I learned my lesson. Another trip comes up and I am issued one funding letter. I drive up again and work a few days, and sure enough, my schedule opens up and I have some days off. But this time, instead of checking out of my hotel, I just leave, drive home, and I'm now sitting on my couch typing this while the company pays my per diem and pays for an empty hotel room. them. And you know what? I'm pretty sure the bean counters will get a raise for their fine work, because honestly, cheers to them, as they literally wasted a lot of money for no reason. Oh my god, this is so stupid. Like seriously, these people must love spending money. Why not just have it all just like in one package thing, and not be like, oh, that's 2 separate trips, sorry. Like they're literally just making this entire thing way more difficult than they need to. So good for you for maliciously complying, because this travel policy is absolutely stupid. Today, I dealt with 2 entitled boomers who honestly were the absolute worst, as they were rude, loud, and incredibly aggressive, forcing me to shut them down by giving them the cold shoulder. Here's how I did it. Okay, so this happened about an hour ago, and I'm so glad I finally have a story I can share. For starters, I'm helping out a friend at his restaurant because he had to fire 4 employees back to back due to them stealing. And this is honestly no big deal, as I have some free time. Well, to start things out, the first boomer male comes storming up to me while my hands are full of margarita mix, saying to me, hello, are you gonna seat me or do I have to sit wherever I want? Now, I saw this man walk in literally 15 seconds ago and stand right in front of the please wait to be seated sign, so I told this first boomer, we'll be with you in a moment, go ahead and wait by the sign that says please wait to be seated. Boomer number 1 scoffs and waits by the sign, and I sat him very shortly afterwards, and then I moved on with my life. Well, 15 minutes later, I walked past his table, and I noticed that he had met up with a male boomer friend who is boomer number 2 in this story. As I walk past this table, boomer number 2 literally shouts at me, excuse me, sir, sir, which may to some extent seem normal, but not only is yelling inside a restaurant wild behavior, I'm also not a sir. I am a woman with a very obvious chest. So I made eye contact and I ignored him, because there's no way this man was talking to me. I then just walked past like I was suddenly deaf. I then walked past a few minutes later, and boomer number 2 starts hooting and hollering again, saying, hello, excuse me, sir, which was again promptly ignored because again, yelling inside is incredibly rude. After my second time ignoring these empty-headed boomers, they visibly started sulking in their seats. So I guess not being given the attention they are so clearly starving sucked the life right out of them, and hopefully taught them some kind of lesson about manners. Oh man, that's super cringy, man. Like, why would you yell in a restaurant like that? That doesn't make any sense to me, dude. Just wait your turn. This guy walked up 15 seconds in, is like, oh my god, do I have to be seated or do I sit down myself? And then the other guy's trying to be like, sir, come over here. And it's like, dude, this is obviously a woman we're talking to. Why are you being so aggressive and rude off rip? Like, this is not a good look, buddy. So honestly, I love the fact that you ignored them and kept on walking, because if they want to be rude, then congratulations, you get to ignore them and go about your day. 2 entitled Karens demand to know why there's hair in their sandwich that they bought, despite the fact that there literally is no hair in it, and instead it's just the way the food looks. Here's how it all went down. Okay, so this situation happened the other day. It was my last table for the day before I got off at 4 o'clock, and at this table were the 2 entitled Karens of the story. Now honestly, things were fine. They ordered food and they ended up splitting a steak and cheese. I brought it out, and within a minute of it being on the table, one of the ladies stopped me. She said to me, there is a hair in this, with the other lady saying, yeah, there's definitely a hair. I look at the sandwich and I immediately recognize it as cheese, not hair. For anyone who knows their cheese, you'll know that provolone cheese on hot sandwiches, when they stretch thin enough, look remarkably like hair. I eat this sandwich all the time, so I'm certain that it is just cheese. I say to him, oh no, that's cheese. I have this sandwich often, and the cheese often does look like that sometimes. The second lady says to me, no, it's hair, and here's another one too. At this point, she's taken the pieces off and just handed them to me. And at that point, I definitely could confirm that it was in fact cheese. I was even able to break it with the slightest touch, which I would not be able to do even with a stray hair unless you pull on it. So I say to them, ma'am, this is cheese. Provolone just gets like this. Lady number 1 says, that's definitely hair, and it needs to be remade and checked for hair. I say to them, ma'am, no one blonde has worked here today in the entire bar, and all of the cooks have black hair, but they didn't care, and they said it's definitely hair, even though it definitely wasn't. I even got the sandwich for myself later on, and it was the same result. Even when we remade it, it had the same result. The worst part was that they were splitting the sandwich, but only she noticed it on her half. And since we can't just make half a sandwich, the cooks had to make a whole sandwich, so they basically got more than what they paid for. Now, the craziest part of all of this is that they tipped like 33%, which is like the most confusing thing that's ever happened to me in my life. Like, I looked you in the eyes and broke the customer service rule to tell you that you're wrong. Why are you tipping me that much money? I'm still blown away by all this because these people were incredibly confusing. Okay, honestly, someone made a really good point in the comment section by basically saying they did a 33% tip as like some kind of apology. Because yeah, these people are idiots. Sometimes provolone does that, and that's definitely not hair. Because what restaurant in their right mind would give out a sandwich full of blonde hair and nobody sees it? Like, that's crazy. That really is so stupid. So yeah, maybe this is a super confusing situation, but maybe they did mean well by being like, oh man, we messed up. We gave that server a hard time. Let's just tip them really well and get out of here and never talk about this ever again. Like, if I was in their shoes, I probably would have done the same thing, because I'm super socially awkward and there's no way I'm ever going to confront that. So either way, enjoy your 33% tip because these people were completely wrong and gave you a hard time for literally no reason. And that, in my opinion, is super inappropriate. An entitled Karen gets turned away at a plasma donation center after her vitals and tests come back saying that it's not safe for her to donate. But as a result, this entitled Karen goes nuts, claiming that we're being racist by turning her away. And I'm simply blown away by the way this entitled Karen acted. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work at a plasma donation center in the United States. And for those of you who don't know, you get paid for donating plasma here. So our plasma centers tend to attract a lot of interesting characters, including people who feel that they are entitled to being paid. Now, let me get a few things straight. You are not entitled to get paid, nor is payment guaranteed. Plasma donation can be dangerous. If you are temporarily deferred for whatever reason, it is for your safety. And unlike some store, we don't have to put up with your BS. If you yell and scream at us and throw a tantrum, we can and will ban you for life. Now, this lady, who is the Karen of the story that we encountered, did not understand any of the above rules. She didn't understand anything about anything and chose to be angry about it instead of listening to what we told her. Now, this Karen was being screened by my coworker. Screening is where we check people's vitals and take a blood sample, and all of these measurements have an acceptable range where it is safe to donate. Some vitals can be taken exactly once. Any more and it would be considered testing by compliance. So if your vitals are still out of range after the retake, well, tough cookies, come back tomorrow. So my coworker retook Karen's vitals and said to her, "I'm sorry ma'am, this measurement is still out of range. You'll have to try again tomorrow." Now this entitled Karen did not like that. She said to my coworker, "What? That is crazy. I'll miss out on the promotion." And for reference, our center has a promotion for new donors. The coworker says, "I know, I'm so sorry." But Karen says, "Can't you take the measurement again?" My coworker then says to her, "Unfortunately, no. We can only take this measurement twice." To which the Karen says, "What? That's crazy. Why not?" And even though my coworker tried to explain that these were the rules and we have to follow them, Karen refused to understand. In fact, even going as far as measuring different things that we were looking at to try and figure out what it is that was way too high. The entitled Karen then said, "But I saw the other day that one of your coworkers let a man donate when he was 2 points below his measurements." My coworker then said, "I don't know anything about that. We have to follow the rules." Well, this entitled Karen then said, "I want to talk to who's in charge right now in private." Now, before my manager arrived to talk to her, this woman actually got on the phone to talk crap about us to one of her friends. She then claimed that the other day, they let a white man go through when he was 2 points below. Yes, you heard that right. She somehow made it about race. Now, here's the thing. We don't defer people based on race. We defer people based on whether or not they're within the safe range of measurement. If we let anyone through who was out of range and they had a reaction, they could easily sue the pants off us. My manager arrived and took her into a private room to talk, and shocker, she explained exactly the same thing my coworker did. "We only take this measurement twice and you will have to come back tomorrow." Well, when the Karen demanded why the man from the other day before was let through when he was 2 points low, my manager simply reiterated, "Ma'am, we do not let anyone through with an out-of-range measurement." This Karen then looked shocked. She said to my manager, "Are you calling me a liar?" To which my manager said, "I think you may have misunderstood or misheard what was going on. The medical historian was probably warning him that the measurement was 2 points away from being too low. We let people know when a measurement is close to being too low so that they can prevent themselves from actually being too low next time. Do you understand?" Now, despite claiming that she understood, the Karen immediately got back on their phone with her friend and said, "I don't understand. This is crazy." And then she left in a huff. Now, unfortunately, despite myself and all of my other coworkers begging my manager to ban this Karen, she has not been banned. But know this, if you donated plasma recently and the story sounds a little too familiar, you better be on your best behavior the next time you come in, because not every manager is as kind. We do not have to put up with your BS for a single second. Oh man, I love this story so much because honestly, why are you gonna act like that? The numbers are not gonna lie and these people are not gonna pull something and be like, "Oh yeah, we're doing this based on race." That's crazy and super dumb, man. So good for you guys for the way you handled this, because the way this Karen was acting was super inappropriate. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not giving my parents a loan for their new restaurant? As I really just don't think they'll ever pay me back if I do give them money. Here's what's going on. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I need some thoughts on this because there's a lot of backstory to go through. I've been working since I was 14 years old and had an account with my mom where all the money was deposited. My parents got their first house when I was 18 and they used my money for the down payment without asking me or letting me know until I asked about that money closer to college. Now, I thought it would be used for my college. At that time, I didn't have a car or my own phone. Since since they were very strict. I'm now in my mid-20s and I've since moved out with my boyfriend, saving up to get our own house. I only have a few $1,000s saved up since I got too spend happy with the financial freedom. I also furnished my room, got a car and a phone, and I have some cats. Also, I've got college debt, so there's that as well. My parents asked me recently for a loan from my saved up money, and while I was on the fence about it, ultimately I declined to help them out. They also acted very desperate, like they needed it urgently. They claimed they would pay me back, but I just don't trust them. They also tried every trick in the book, saying that I owe them and that they raised me, while also sprinkling in some guilt tripping and basically the whole 9 yards. Ever since then, they haven't contacted me, and I've definitely not contacted them either. So seriously, am I in the wrong for this? Was I the jerk for not giving them money? What should I do? Okay, honestly, maybe this is a hot take, but no, you're not the jerk. Your parents have already proven to not be trustworthy by taking your money as a kid and using that for a down payment. Like, dude, what's going on right now? That sucks, dude. You literally worked for that money and they stole it. They used it on something you did not give them permission to use it on. You were gonna use that for college and they step in and they're like, oh yeah, sorry, we're gonna use it for our house instead. Like, screw that. That's so inappropriate. So no, in my opinion, they absolutely have lost the right to have any kind of like money from you because they're clearly not trustworthy and it seems like they're just trying to get a quick buck out of you, and that is really not fair. My younger brother is insanely jealous of me, constantly insulting me and being aggressive and showing some absolute resentment towards me as a person. And I'm honestly at a point where I just don't know how to repair this relationship because right now I feel incredibly lost. Here's what's going on. My family immigrated to the United States in 2009. I was around 4 or 5 years old at the time, and my youngest brother was born here. I grew up in poverty during those early years, but my brother was raised in a more financially stable environment. Because of this, I've always had to hustle and work hard chasing the American dream, if you will, while he, on the other hand, didn't experience the same pressures. Over the last several years, however, I've noticed troubling patterns in his behavior. He's becoming increasingly competitive, insecure, and hostile, going out of his way to try and one-up me in everything. He refuses to share even the smallest things like food, even though I always bring or buy him things when I go out. I've tried to be the caring older brother, giving him gifts, giving him rides, and including him in my life even when he's rude. But in return, I get insults, aggression, and resentment. And honestly, I get nothing. Not a single gift, a card, or anything. There have even been physical altercations. One time he initiated a fist fight while I was peacefully working on my laptop, just because he felt compared to me. He constantly tries to tear me down, especially when I'm in the spotlight, which unfortunately happens a lot since I've always tried to show love and care to others, and people respond positively to that. He sees it as competition, not kindness. The family loves me when I visit because I believe every heart responds to tender love. The emotional imbalance is especially frustrating because my parents often tell me I'm doing too much for him, and it's heartbreaking to know he wouldn't do the same for me. I've been dealing with this dynamic for the past 2 years. I've done everything I can to support him, but the bitterness hasn't gone away. I suspect it may come from deep-rooted jealousy or self-esteem issues, but it doesn't make the situation any easier. Ironically, despite his resentment, he is often the one who gets more from our parents materially. For instance, he got a $3,000 e-bike recently, while my most expensive birthday gift was a PS5, which I'm so thankful for. And honestly, shout out to my parents for making it a surprise. So would anyone out there have any idea about this? How do I maintain or repair a sibling relationship when it feels completely one-sided? At what point do you stop giving so much even when it's family? And how do you protect your peace in situations like this? I want to either repair this relationship with my brother so it is less one-sided, or learn how to emotionally detach from living in the same home, because right now I don't know what to do. Yeah, your brother's being incredibly stupid right now. For reference, the original poster is 21 years old and their brother's 15, but my god, that is definitely old enough to know better than to treat someone like that. He is disrespectful all the time and still gets these amazing gifts on a consistent basis from the parents. And honestly, in my opinion, the second someone shows me how they actually are, I'm gonna believe them. I'm gonna say, okay, this is how you really feel, and I'm not gonna try and convince myself otherwise. So if this guy's aggressively insulting you and he's showing resentment, then in my opinion, that's how he actually feels about you. This isn't some facade that needs to be healed. This is actually how your brother feels. And just like anybody else who would treat you that way, if I was in your shoes, I would cut them off. I would personally say, I'm sorry, but I can't help you out anymore. You're being really aggressive and rude to me, and I don't appreciate that. Because guess what? You don't deserve that. This kind of behavior should absolutely slam the door shut on anything you have to offer him. Because in my opinion, that is the only way to make this stop, whether he likes it or not. Am I the jerk for not letting my roommate use my Nintendo Switch, as he literally started playing on it without my permission? Here's what's going on. Okay, so I'm a 21-year-old male and I live with my roommate, who we will call Dave, in a college apartment. I bought a Nintendo Switch last month with money from my part-time job. It cost me $300 and I was really excited about it. Now Dave doesn't have a job and his parents send him money for rent and food. He's always borrowing things from me and never asked permission first. In fact, last week I caught him using my laptop without asking me first. So yesterday I come home from work and Dave is playing on my Switch. I was kind of annoyed and I told him to ask me next time before using my stuff. But he just said to me, "Chill dude, it's just a gaming console." But I said to him, "Yeah, and it's my game console that I paid for." He then got defensive and said that I was being selfish since we're roommates and we should share everything apparently. But I told him if he wants to play video games, he can buy his own console. After I said this, he's now giving me the silent treatment and told our mutual friends that I'm being a jerk over something stupid. A couple of them even said that I should just let him use it since we live together. So seriously, am I being unreasonable here? I feel like I should get to decide who uses my expensive electronics, because at this point I'm seriously pissed off. No, you're not the jerk at all. This guy is completely selfish. He clearly is one of those people who just uses anything in front of him and asks for forgiveness later and doesn't even consider the person he's taking from. Like if I was in your shoes, I would absolutely be locking that console down, because what begins as him just like borrowing the console to play on it quickly becomes him being like, "Oh no, this is my game console, I own it." And then you don't see it ever again. Like that easily could happen. And I also just really hate this guy's attitude. Like seriously, can we talk about that for a second? He's so dismissive and just so nonchalant about this, even though it's clearly a big deal to the original poster, and I think it is too. So no, you're not the jerk for telling him this, and honestly, I hope it gets better sooner than later, because it sounds like your roommate's incredibly selfish and this is going to be a reoccurring problem. Am I the jerk for no longer wanting to be responsible for my sister and her kids after I've spent several years supporting them and honestly just trying to be there for them? Because as of right now, I'm burnt out and I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I lived with them for years throughout her and her husband's toxic and awful marriage. I mainly stayed to protect the kids and do what I could to protect them from seeing the awful things that were going on, namely the verbal, emotional, financial, and sometimes physical mistreatment. After living separately, I moved back in with them to ease the financial burden on all of us, with full intentions on repairing mistakes made in my 20s and stacking up money. Well, 1 month in, the husband abandoned us to go halfway across the country to Florida and took their vehicle with him. I didn't have a car at the time, and part of my repair plan was trying to get another one. Once he left, my sister and I had to figure out how to pay all the bills and provide for the kids, swap off on childcare, and also find rides to work. And this was extremely exhausting. But 6 months later, this guy came back, and he told her that we're all going to Florida and that we're gonna live there instead, claiming that things would get better there. But I begged her, please don't do this. We had finally started to gain a little ground where we were, and we were getting somewhere and surviving peacefully. But she didn't listen, and because of the financial wreck I was still in, I really had no choice but to go with them. Well, we were homeless for 7 months. We lived out of a hotel for the last half of it, scraping by on nickels and dimes. But thankfully, the husband finally listened when we suggested going back to North Carolina near my family where I'm from. And when we get there, we had a house within a week, despite spending months trying to tell him that we should do this, but to no avail. So I restart trying to make a plan for myself to be independent and be able to support myself. All the bills are split into thirds, and I got a really good job and started to see a light at the end of the tunnel. And then at the end of April, early May, her husband once again fell into his old patterns, only this time they strayed majorly into the physical aspect of things. Well, long story short, me, my sister, and the kids all hid at my family's house while she got a restraining order. We then had to leave our house for good because of the horrible landlord and the house problems that were ignored. And now us minus the husband are living at my parents' house. He won't send any money, he won't pay anything, and has seen his kids maybe twice since May, which now leaves me stuck financially supporting myself, my sister, and her kids because my sister doesn't have a full-time job since she's been a stay-at-home mom. For nearly 5 years, I've been advising her to leave the relationship or at the very least insist on working full-time just so she can never allow herself to be financially dependent on him again. But here's the thing, she has consistently decided not to listen to me. Her husband destroyed their credit and we can't get approved for any rentals because of that. I want to just leave and get my own place, which I could easily do, and my parents are telling me it's more responsibility than theirs to support her and basically forbidding me to leave when I've been doing the supporting for way longer than I should have. They have helped us over the years, but my stupid idiot self just kept staying in the situation because I would feel like a horrible person for abandoning not only her, but especially my 3 younger nephews who are all about 5 years old. I know the obvious choice is to take care of myself, but it makes me feel extremely guilty and like I'm abandoning them just like their dad did, and I don't know how to get past that. Another reason I can't make the leap is because my family will not help me in any way, shape, or form if it's needed in the future, and I'm really scared of having zero support system and being completely on my own. So honestly, would I be the jerk for no longer wanting to be responsible for this? Because at this point, I'm so frustrated. Okay, first of all, this is some heavy stuff. I'm so sorry you're going through this. It's clear you've had a really rough past in life and this is just not fair for you. But honestly, I think you said it yourself. You know the right decision and you know what you want to do. And from the sounds of it, it doesn't seem like you're happy living with your sister any longer. Now, I do need to say that I think there's a big distinction between the husband leaving and you leaving, because the husband absolutely is a piece of garbage for doing so, whereas if you left, I don't think it would be for the same reasons at all. You're not walking out on the family, you're trying to start your own family. You're literally trying to live your life, and you can't do that strapped to your sister all the time. So honestly, I don't think you would be the jerk at all for walking away and trying to set up your own life, because I think you deserve to have your own life and have your own peace. My best friend's fiance grabbed my butt out of nowhere, and now I'm considering not showing up to their wedding, even though I'm involved in nearly every aspect of the planning process. Here's what's going on. So my best friend is supposed to be getting married to her boyfriend of 7 years in November of this year. Since I have worked in event planning and have a wholesale number, I've been helping them with large amounts of tasks for the wedding, namely the bachelorette party planning, the party favors, the wholesale flowers, making a wedding piñata, their guest book, the cake, etc. Because I'm an artist and was so excited for their wedding, I took on a lot of tasks that they would have otherwise had to farm out and pay for separately. I went to visit last week as I was in town for a separate event, and they let me crash in their apartment so we could spend more time together. I had a great visit with my friends while in town, but I had to stay an extra day than planned due to weather making it unsafe to drive. Because of this, her fiance offered to take me to breakfast that morning at 9 o'clock, which would be before I got on the road as my best friend was already at work. Now, for a bit of background, my best friend goes to work at 6 o'clock in the morning every single day, and her fiance works from home. Anyways, I said bye to my friend when she left for work, and then I slept in until 9 o'clock in the morning. After waking up, her fiance immediately started acting very strange. He was hanging out in his underwear, and he insisted I pick out clothing for him to wear that day. Now, I have a history of distrusting men due to previous relationships, and I do still have some PTSD, especially when it comes to my personal space and boundaries. So at first, I figured I was just overreacting. He then cornered me in the closet, still in his underwear, and while it was extremely strange, I just removed myself from the situation by just quickly slipping past him, being sure not to make any physical contact. After that, he kept weirdly following me around the apartment as I deflated the air mattress I had slept on, always weirdly standing over me. It was freaking me out enough that I just stopped and insisted we head to breakfast. Now, breakfast was normal, and we talked all about the wedding and his plans to surprise my best friend with her wedding ring. He then drove us back to the apartment, and we loaded up my things into the car. I went back to grab my last few things from the house, and that's when it got really weird. He kept insisting that I stay longer and hang out. I questioned him, asking if he was just bored or why he would want me to stay, reiterating that I was anxious about getting home as I was supposed to leave the day before. He started at 2 hours and then 1 more hour, and then just asked me if I would stay until about 11:15. I looked past him and it was like 10:45, so I asked him what he would want me to stay to do for like 30 minutes. He then said anything you want with a super creepy smirk. Well, that sent up many red flags, and I grabbed my last stuff and I headed towards the door of their apartment. He sounded kind of offended and asked if I was going to leave without saying goodbye. Now, I faltered as I didn't want to offend my best friend's person, so I turned back around and I said, of course not. And he went in for a hug, which I didn't pull away from, but as soon as his arms were around me, his hand went right to my butt and he patted it twice. When I began to pull away because that made me incredibly uncomfortable, he fully grabbed my left butt cheek and squeezed it. I went into flight mode and I made my way to the door again. Well, he beat me there and he put his hand on the top of the door, preventing me from opening it. He then repeated, "You're not gonna tell her, are you?" several times until I was finally able to get the door open and leave. My best friend then called me as I pulled out of their apartment complex because he texted her that I had just left. Now, I've been kind of in shock since it all happened and made an appointment with my therapist and talked through it just a little bit. She thinks he's trying to get out of the marriage, but it all seems to be falling on deaf ears for my best friend. She can't seem to believe that he'd behave like that, and after talking with her more, it seems like he's gaslighting her into thinking that it was just a misunderstanding. I talked to my other best friend from that area, and apparently my best friend's fiance did a similar thing to her at a house party a few months back. I've known my other best friend and her fiance for 7 years, and even I find it hard to believe that he behaved like that, as I've never seen any warning signs before. But with that, I need to know if I'm overreacting. Her bridal shower and bachelorette are set to take place in August, which is less than a month away, and I'm just not sure if I can take part in the festivities after what happened to me. I'm seeking any advice on what I should do, or if I'm the jerk for boycotting the entirety of their wedding. If I do decide to not partake, does anyone have any advice on how to tell her about it, or what I should say? Since I was taking on such a big role in the preparation and the wedding planning, I still feel like a jerk, and it feels like I'm going to lose one of my best college friends. I'm honestly feeling really lost, and I seriously don't know what to do. Holy crap, no, you are not overreacting. Your best friend's fiance did something to you that was completely inappropriate and unacceptable unacceptable. There's never a situation where this is okay, and honestly, this is a deal breaker in my opinion. And yeah, you put a lot of work into this wedding and you've done a lot of the planning, but my God, this guy is worse than a piece of crap. He is someone who clearly targets women and treats them like this and somehow still gets away with it. And you're just one of many girls, probably besides your other friend, that have been touched inappropriately by this weirdo. So no, you're not the jerk here, and you're definitely not overreacting. Not showing up and saying, I'm not going to be a part of this, and then explaining why to anybody asking is absolutely within your right. And sure, you might lose a friend over this, but honestly, I would not want to be friends with someone who excuses this kind of behavior, especially when you're not the first woman he's done this to. An entitled jerk kept spoiling a show I was trying to watch for the first time, as he literally came into our store and told me all about what happened in the final season, literally for over 2 months. So I decided to get my own petty revenge by giving him a taste of his own medicine in a way he will never forget. Here's what happened. Okay, so I used to work in a comic shop, and we had a lot of regulars who would come in every week who I got to know fairly well. Now, there was one guy who had mentioned he liked Stargate. So one week he came in, and I mentioned to him that I had started rewatching Stargate from the very beginning. I also mentioned that I'd never seen the last 3 seasons or any of the spin-offs, so I was excited to see them. Well, the first thing he says is, "Oh, you don't know about the thing that happens then, do you?" And he then goes into a detailed description of something that happens in the final season. And when he said this, I was like, whoa, hold on, no spoilers, man. Which should have been enough, but of course it absolutely wasn't. Every week he'd come back in and spoil it for me even more. And every week I would tell him to please just not spoil it for me. This went on for about 2 months. Between the regularity of it and the smirk he'd get on his face every time I asked him to not tell me spoilers, I knew he was doing it on purpose. And at this point I decided that I was gonna get my petty revenge. One week he came in and bought a big pile of comics that he had ordered. I waited for him to pay, and then instead of bagging them, I fanned them out all on the counter. You see, I read a lot of comics, especially back in the day. I read every new comic that was published by Marvel and DC, and then some, especially as they came out. So it just so happened that I had read every single comic he had just purchased. And this is where my revenge comes into play, and I'm sure you could see where this is going. I then proceeded to point to each comic and spoil every single one of them. Well, after that, he didn't talk to me about Stargate ever again, because he finally got a taste of his own medicine. Oh man, this guy's a giant jerk. Like seriously, don't spoil a show for somebody. And the fact that he was doing it over and over again in such a targeted way is so inappropriate. Like, you know for a fact he found like some sick joy out of that, which is so weird in my opinion. Like, dude, leave people alone and let them enjoy whatever they want to enjoy. Don't go around spoiling crap for people and being like, oh yeah, you don't know about the details in the final season. And sure, an accidental spoiler is like one thing, but for him to tell you over and over again and just completely ignore anything that you're saying, like that is super toxic and deserve to be shut down. So good for you for showing him exactly how obnoxious that really is, because what he was doing was incredibly annoying. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not sending my mom money to put food in the house, despite the fact that she spends all of her money by going to the casino? Here's what's happening. For some background knowledge, I got my first job when I was 16 years old. Ever since I started working and bringing in my own income, my mom has been leeching off of me for money, and I'm basically a second source of income. Every time I get paid, she pocket watches me or starts immediately asking for money at any chance she gets. Now, my mom has a full-time job working 40 hours a week, and she makes significantly more money than I do. The problem is that her priorities are never focused on what's important when she gets paid. She either goes out and buys cigarettes, or she goes to the casino and gambles all, if not most of her money away. It is very frustrating, especially because she knows we need to eat and that we're barely able to get by as it is, and yet she still goes to the casino. I'm now 18 years old and the situation still applies. So today she asked me to send her about $35 so she can do a Walmart order and put food in the house. She had a little money for it, but she just needed me to cover the rest, and I told her that I couldn't send it. I've been working 2 jobs, so I've had a little extra money for myself lately, but I've gotten so sick and tired of her asking for money and being the second source of income to the point where whenever she asks for money, I tell her no. She then told me that it was okay and that she'd figure something out. A few hours later, she was more or less like, wait, so you got paid $800 yesterday, but you can't send me money to feed your family? It was something along those lines. Also, mind you, in the text message itself, she said to me, and you most certainly don't have to. So I'm just thinking, okay, well then why are you texting me? So honestly, I just want to know if I'm in the wrong for not wanting to send it to her. I feel like if she got her crap together and prioritized her money better, then she wouldn't need to be be asking me or anyone else she knows for money. So am I the jerk here? Because right now I'm incredibly pissed off. No, you're not the jerk. This is absolutely her problem. Instead of being the responsible adult in the room, she's gonna go to you instead and be like, oh, just give me $35. Don't you want to have food in the house? What's wrong with you? And it's like, yeah, I do, but guess what? That's your responsibility, not mine. And also, if you haven't done it already, I would never tell her how much you make ever again. She definitely doesn't need to know that, and it's honestly none of her business. So truly, you are absolutely not the jerk for turning her down because she is using you like an ATM, which in my opinion is incredibly unfair. My job is making me dread going into work so much that it's really affecting my self-worth and my self-esteem, making me regret taking this job in the first place. Here's what's going on. I'm currently working as a server at a retirement home, and it's my first job and I've only been there for a couple of months, but I'm starting to wonder if I should leave because I genuinely dread going into work every single day. I took on this job hoping it would make me stronger as a person and help me talk to people more, especially since I'm very introverted and I have a history of social anxiety. As the weeks go on, however, I just find myself dreading going into work more and more each day. It is so hard to keep up, even for the people who have worked there for years, and I frequently find myself breaking down whenever the stress gets too much for me. I feel so guilty whenever that happens because I try so hard to hold it together and just get through my shift, but I always end up breaking down because the work keeps piling up and the residents are very quick to get upset sometimes. The leads just tell me to go in the back whenever I cry, but I feel so bad that I'm putting my work onto other people and making the residents wait longer. My manager is super sweet, but I worry that I might be a burden on my coworkers and I'm just causing more stress for them in the long run by staying. I often find myself thinking that I'm worthless and that my coworkers are annoyed by me because of how easily I get stressed out. Some of them are super gossipy and toxic too, so I'm convinced that they speak poorly of me when I'm not around. I'm worried about how it would look on my resume if I only stay at this job for a few months. I want to show commitment, but I genuinely can't see myself staying here much longer. I'm starting to look for employment elsewhere so that I will be financially stable if I do decide to leave soon. I've heard from my coworkers that it gets better, but I hate knowing that I'm just being a burden. I want to be able to pull my own weight so badly and not break down whenever it gets hard, but I'm starting to think that maybe I'm not built for this job, especially if I get so overwhelmed like this to the point where I can't even do my job to the best of my ability. What should I do? Okay, honestly, I completely understand where you're coming from because holy crap, some jobs just really blow. They're not fun, they're overwhelming, you get treated like crap, etc. And I've definitely worked those kinds of jobs and it is not a good time ever. You wake up dreading to go to work, you're not looking forward to your day, you think to yourself that you would literally rather do anything else than go into work. Like, dude, I totally get where you're coming from. But for what it's worth, I can tell you right now that it really does get better. And I'm not talking about the job, but I'm talking about you in general. You slowly but surely become better at handling these kind of situations. When it comes to your resume and all that stuff, like, look, if you're looking for another job and you know the job you have currently is not a good fit, then just keep moving forward. Like, it's not that big of a deal. You say this is like your first job, and like, honestly, no one's gonna blame you if you don't want to stick around for that. I would personally say stay for like, I don't know, like 3 months or something like that, just to give it some time. But if you know for a fact this is not a good fit, then sure, find something else. That's totally understandable. In my opinion, it's better to find a job when you have a job, but like, things happen. And trust me, leaving a job you just started is not as unusual as you might think it is. People do this all the time, and it's not seriously that big of a deal, so I would definitely cut yourself some slack here. But either way, I hope this all works out. An entitled idiot at a desert party literally is looking for a fight, as he intentionally bumps into my shoulder, spilling beer all over my shirt. So I get some revenge by throwing my drink right at his back, soaking him to the bone in a way he will never forget. Here's how I did it. Years ago, my friends and I went to a party in the desert in Arizona. I wasn't much of a beer drinker, so I picked up a bottle of vodka, a big bottle of Sprite, and a big gulp cup. We get to the location in the area of the desert where a lot of parties are thrown on weekends. Tons of people from all over had shown up. I'm standing around with a couple of buddies, drinking from my big gulp cup, and sure enough, young men and alcohol has a great potential to breed idiots. A couple of guys started walking around acting tough and looking to start a fight with somebody, anybody. I assumed they were on the football team or something like that. Anyways, they're walking through the crowd, bumping into people hard, trying to start something. I had just refilled my cup and one of the guys was walking past me from behind and bumped me quite hard as he walked past. And as a result, I spilled some of my drink on my shirt. And I'm not gonna lie, they were already very irritating. But now he just pisses me off even more. So as he was walking by, I yell out, "Hey idiot," and I toss my whole drink at him, soaking the back of his shirt quite extensively at that. And quite a few people saw me do this as well. He then turns around pissed off and shouts out, "Who did that?" He then looks right at me and I pointed at my wet shirt and I say, "I don't know, man, but the jerk got me too." I then pointed in a different direction and I said, "He went that way." Well, this guy actually thanked me and went looking for his non-existent assailant. But after this, I simply refilled my cup while all the other witnesses laugh their butts off, which honestly, this is the least amount of revenge I could enact on this guy, especially since he was obviously looking for a fight. Oh man, you handled this perfectly. First of all, it's really smart that you didn't try to like start a fight with this guy, but I love the way you misdirected him and basically said, oh yeah, I got hit too. He went that way, go look that way, drunk guy. Like seriously, that's fantastic in my opinion. So good for you for deflecting and basically avoiding getting in a fight, because that could have been really bad. My entitled mom yells at me no matter what. Despite the fact that I've done literally everything to try and appeal to her, she still yells at me and I'm honestly so sick of it. Here's what's going on. For the last 2 days, my mom has been in a constant mood, like agitation, yelling, and complaining for the last 48 hours. I have stayed calm the best I can, and I've tried to not break down or get frustrated with her. But no matter what I do or even don't do, she has yelled at me, especially today. Now, I have a cat, a little sweetheart who's gotten me through like the last 2.5 months, and my mom scared him yesterday, and I told her that. But she got mad at me as if it was my fault. Today, he had an appointment as he's been a bit sick. The vet came in, talked a bit, then went out to do a few things for my little boy. Well, as soon as the vet went out, my mom immediately changed. She went from sweet with a vet to berating me, specifically bringing up what happened yesterday, saying that she's not going towards him because he's scared of her. And she said this in a very condescending tone. But here's the thing, he really is scared of her. He has flinched after seeing her, squirms around when she tries to give him his medicine, and refused to let her pick him up at the vet. Yet she still doesn't see he's terrified, and just continues to be mean and angry at him. No matter what I've said, she's still yelled at me today. I've asked her questions about something, I don't remember exactly what, but it was just a simple question. She then just immediately snapped at me. Like even just talking to her, she snaps at me. Now the vet for my cat said not to give him anything other than the food they prescribed and his medicine. But my mom wanted to go against them and give him a dry food that we got after a few days on his new medicine, despite them saying not to give him anything other than the given food and medicine for the next 2 to 4 weeks. I told her I won't be doing what she said, and her response was to say, oh right, because I forgot you know everything. And it's like, I'm just following the vet's orders. If I stay quiet, I get yelled at. If I follow along, I get yelled at. If I try to communicate, ask a question, or even speak, I literally get yelled at, no matter what I do. It always just gives me the same result. Well, she's now decided to blame her mood on Mercury going into retrograde, which is not a reason but an excuse to yell at me no matter what I do, and to try and make me leave it alone and just take it. She likes to say that me being on testosterone is not an excuse for my agitation, despite it changing my hormones and agitation being the main side effect. But she believes because I'm using that as an excuse, she can use astronomy as hers. But that's not the same as my hormones literally changing. But I guess I'm stuck wondering whatever this is until she decides to stop. You know, whenever that's gonna be. I wish I wasn't stuck. But with what she's basically done with my life, I am stuck until further notice. I might be 18 years old, but she is forcing me back to when I was 8. And honestly, I'm so sick of it. Yeah, that really sucks, man. I'm so sorry you have to deal with that. Your mom snaps at you no matter what, and she refuses to take like any responsibility. And her saying, oh yeah, Mercury's in retrograde. Like that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. That is not real, and you cannot convince me otherwise. Am I the jerk for feeling excluded from going on family vacations? As my family literally does not include me in any major events, all because I live across the country. Here's what's going on. So several times, my parents have taken my brother and his family on family vacations. I live across the country and I am single, but I have never been invited on these family vacations. To add to that, my brother recently had a courthouse wedding and I wasn't invited. I got into it with my mom today, where I told her, okay, maybe I can't go, but an invitation would be nice, and it would make me feel included in the family. Well, she said that I chose to be far away so they don't invite me, and said that I need to make more of an effort, to which she refused to elaborate on. I travel to see them at least once a year. Meanwhile, they never come to see me. I told her I understand my choice to be far away, but being included by invitation in family events would be a nice gesture. To purposefully exclude me because they think I can't make it honestly feels like I'm not part of the family. They don't know what I can and can't do. She also went on that my brother looks out for her by trying to keep her active. I know they've always favored my brother, and that's not the issue. The issue is that I feel hurt that they exclude me from family events because I live far away. So am I the jerk for bringing this up in the first place? Because right now I feel incredibly frustrated. No, you're not the jerk. This really is inconsiderate of them, and the fact that they're not willing to like, I don't know, tell you that something's going on, like a marriage or a family vacation, like that to me shows that yeah, they probably don't like you nearly as much as you want. And that really sucks. Like that's not your fault at all. So honestly, I'm so sorry that you're dealing with this, but no, you are definitely not the jerk. And the fact that they're not willing to include you in stuff is incredibly toxic. Am I overreacting after my boyfriend gave his mother the dress I wanted for my birthday? Because right now I feel incredibly hurt and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 23-year-old female and I've been dating my boyfriend, who's a 26-year-old male, for about 3 years now. About 2 months ago, while we were out shopping, I saw this really gorgeous, amazing dress that was just perfect for me, and it was in my favorite color. He looked at the dress and said it was beautiful, but it was rather expensive, so we didn't end up getting it. For weeks after this, I would constantly talk about the dress to him and how I couldn't stop thinking about how beautiful it was and hope that one day I could save up to buy it since we've been budgeting a bit lately. He would hear about this dress from me all the time and talked about how great he thought it would look on me. So yesterday was my birthday, and we had a little get-together with some members of both of our families to celebrate, except when his mom arrived to our house, she was wearing the exact same dress in the exact same color, and I was stunned. I thought that he must have told her about it and she went and got one, but it turns out that wasn't the case. In my surprise, I said, "Oh my gosh, there's no way. That's the same dress I was looking at and just loving for the past few months." She then replied by saying, "Oh really? He gave it to me as a gift last month." And when she said this, I was shocked and very confused. Even more so when my boyfriend gave me the birthday gift that he got me. It was literally a $50 gift card to Sephora. For the rest of the night, I sat quietly in a corner in silence and confusion. I felt hurt and was lost in my head as to what was going on. My boyfriend and everyone was blissfully unaware and happy the entire night, and I didn't want to ruin the mood, so I started to try and put on a good face. But I just can't shake this feeling of being hurt. A part of me feels like I'm overreacting and acting spoiled and entitled. So seriously, am I? I just need to know if I need to calm down and not be upset about this, because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, before I go any further and give my takes on this is some crazy stuff because we have an update from the original poster that literally blows all of this out the water. So here's what they had to say. I finally got the nerve to straight up ask him about everything, and his response was to say that he thought I had to be humbled a bit because I got way too overly excited about something as trivial as a dress. He thought it would be fun to see my reaction to all of it. His mom had no idea about any of this and just thought her son was giving her a gift. I'm now so upset and hurt that I just called my mom to come get me, and I will be staying with her for a few days while I figure out my next steps because I am absolutely not going back to him. Okay, dude, this is some toxic, crazy stuff. What boyfriend in their right mind who loves their girlfriend would be like, "Oh yeah, you need to be humbled. You're way too excited about this. I'm gonna buy this for my mom instead of you. Let's see how you feel about it." Like, dude, what is going on right now? That's crazy. And that's not some normal, like, loving behavior. That's some psychopathic, narcissistic stuff, dude. Like, seriously, what's your problem? You're a terrible person. So to the original poster, no, you're not crazy, and no, you're not overreacting by getting out of there. This guy does not care about you, and he's treating you like crap on purpose. And that, in my opinion, is a red flag that you absolutely cannot ignore. An entitled Karen refused to listen to us and instead decided that she wanted to fight with us, regardless of what we were trying to say or any of the help we tried to give. Here's how it went down. To start things out, as a single-digit age kid, I spent my summers working for the family business, and one part of that was running the concession contract at a small local music venue. Popcorn, burgers, fried chicken, pre-made salads, and drinks were the bulk of what we had, but there was a small formal dining area of about 30 tables on a patio overlooking the wooden ravine. These tables were by reservation only, but on super slow nights without a reservation, walk-ins were allowed. For this restaurant area, we do not have a liquor license, so we couldn't serve wine with dinner. Sorry, getting a license for a seasonal, weather-dependent outdoor venue that was only open 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, just simply wasn't worth the hassle. And since we were just the concessionaries, it wasn't even our venue, so we couldn't get one on our own if we wanted to. Now, one of the most common types of shows would be a symphony orchestra or a well-known string ensemble. We had major concerts with B-list and former A-list stars sprinkled in, but those were outnumbered by the classy performances. And where you have classy performances, you have uptight snobs who can't eat a bite of food without wine. They also know that they absolutely deserve it, and nobody had better tell them no. Now, for most people, we would say we have no liquor license, so we don't serve or sell any wine. We also cannot tell people it's okay to bring their own wine. Again, listen carefully. We cannot tell people it's okay, as in we cannot give permission. There are liquor laws for a reason. Well, this is where the entitled couple of this story enters the scene. They're making reservations on the phone, and we had a steady trickle of people like this, and the conversation always went the same. The wife of the couple was on the phone and said, "What kinds of wines do you serve?" We responded back by saying, "I'm sorry, but we do not have a liquor license, so we don't serve any wine." This lady then says, "Well, what kind of restaurant doesn't have any wine? This is a very special occasion, and we can't enjoy it without wine. Can't you make an exception just this one time?" But we just apologized and said, "I'm sorry, we don't have a liquor license." This entitled Karen then says to us, "Well, can you just go get one? I mean, how hard can it be?" To which we literally didn't say anything and just stood there in silence. The entitled Karen then said, "Well, we'll just bring our own and then you can serve it." But as soon as we heard that, we said, "I'm sorry, but without a liquor license, we cannot serve wine, and the venue does not allow alcohol to be brought through the gate." Now, as a side note, we had nothing to do with the venue or the gate. Their policies were their policies. And while there was technically technically a rule against bringing in alcohol, people routinely brought in picnic meals and snacks to have on the grassy area. And while there was a rule against bringing in alcohol, they also did not check any of the bags or any of the coolers. I mean, for some of the big concerts, some of the family kids could get like $50 in aluminum a night after the show was over, with us racing through the venue ground screws to collect as many cans as possible. This couple then said, "So we can't even bring our own wine in?" But we responded by saying, "Look, I cannot give you permission, but they don't check the bags." Now, I need to add in that the owners told all of us to word it exactly like that. We weren't allowed to tell somebody they weren't allowed to bring the booze in, but since we were under the venue's policies and their official policy was to not check the bags, we could say that. Now, about half of the couple picked up on the dance, which then led to them asking rapid-fire questions. We basically explained again that we do not serve wine, and that's all that we're gonna say. Also, we do have some wine glasses they could borrow if they wanted to, and we also have a corkscrew that they could borrow too. Well, after getting through all of this, the other half would scream, yell, and insult, and was even threatening and bullying and being cajoling and pleading with us. But if they would just shut up and listen and think for just a moment, they would be able to pick up what the others did. But they wanted to fight instead. They wanted to win more than they wanted to drink wine and just pretend to be grown-ups. They wanted to pretend to be classy for a night, but they clearly were not. People who don't listen when being told how to get things done, when permission can't be really given, need to stop and think for a moment, because this entitled Karen absolutely refused to do so, and that is nobody's problem except for hers. Dude, I can't stand people who literally try to act like they're more important than they really are, and the Karen in this story absolutely fits the bill. My entitled sister disowned the entire family and cursed all of our names, saying that she wants nothing to do with any of us for the rest of her life. But now, even with this stance, she still expects us to buy Christmas presents for her kids, despite the fact she said she would call the police and file a report if we ever contacted her ever again. And I'm honestly so done with my sister because her antics are incredibly exhausting. Here's what's happening. Several years ago, my sister heard a rumor about my brother and automatically went onto social media, shared personal details about him, and refused to let him come near her children going forward. And this rumor, by the way, turned out to be nothing to do with my brother. Well, my sister continued to share false accusations about him and refused to listen to anyone. Her relationship with different family members disintegrated, and she sent a message to all family members saying she would disown them and not let them see her children unless they cut my brother off. Now, I didn't agree to that, and neither did any of my other family, so she carried through with her remarks and blocked everyone online and stopped attending family events. A few months of silence followed before being interrupted by an email sent to half the family. She accused everyone of upsetting her children because they didn't send them any presents or Christmas money for Christmas. Well, the explanation was that we would have, but the last time someone had contacted her, she had sent them a reply full of insults and said she would file a police report if anyone contacted her. This continued to the next birthday for one of her children, where once again, she messaged family saying that she thought we would have learned our lesson from Christmas. She then followed this up by expecting my parents to kick my brother and I out of the house for a week so that she and her children could stay with them while they were in between moving homes, despite not having talked to my parents for literally months. Well, this was shot down, but not without social media posts about family ignoring family, and started accusing us of disowning her instead and that we hated her kids. Now, we still don't talk to her, and whilst I miss my nieces and nephews, I honestly do not miss my sister's entitlement, because her attitude is honestly so repulsive. Oh man, this is some crazy behavior. You're telling me that this lady literally thought, oh yeah, I'm gonna cut all of you off, but also you need to give my kids Christmas presents. Like, dude, what are you talking about? You can't say you're gonna file a police report and then insult everyone and then still expect something out of anybody. That's some crazy entitled behavior, dude. Like, that is not okay. And I love the part where she's like, okay, kick these people out of the house so me and my kids can show up. And it's like, oh, okay, here are your parents who literally have not talked to you for months, and now you suddenly think we're just gonna give in to your weird demands and do whatever you say? Like, dude, what are you talking about here? But all jokes aside, this really sucks for the kids because they do not deserve this at all. Like, seriously, they've done nothing wrong, and yet their mom is acting like a crazy psychopath. I've run into people like this in my own life where they try to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna keep my kids away from you. We're disowning you and we want nothing to do with you. Where they then try to act like, oh, my kids are being kept away from you as a punishment. But it's like, dude, I could care less about your kids. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't mind seeing nieces and nephews, but like, if you're gonna hold them against me and be like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna let you see them, then trust me, I'm gonna move forward just fine with my life and not have any problems with this. Like, you're not hurting me by not allowing me to see the kids, you're only hurting your kids. Like, this doesn't affect me at all, I'll be completely fine. Instead, it's your kids that are gonna miss out on having a positive role model in their life who actually cares about them. Which, by the way, why would I be a part of your life when you just cut off the entire family, while also simultaneously expecting Christmas gifts all the time? Like, this is some crazy logic, dude, I just don't understand this. So yeah, your sister's an idiot, especially after false accusations that she started, and the fact that she's not willing to make amends and apologize or do anything any of those steps to try and make things right, in my opinion, is some absolutely insane behavior. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled roommate was so bad that when he left, he smashed all the things he couldn't bring with him. So I decided to get some petty revenge by racking up the internet bill at my apartment, as he forgot to cancel his plan before he got kicked out. Here's what happened. Okay, so years ago, I had a crappy roommate who didn't pay on time. So eventually, I gave him a 2-month warning. He threatened me, it got ugly, but he did eventually leave. Now, because he is a loser, he burned all his connections, and I'm assuming he had no one to help him move, and everything he couldn't take, he just smashed. That way, I couldn't sell it or use it. And we're talking stuff like the kitchen table, chairs, the ceiling fan, brooms, and mops. He had a huge record collection he poured nasty bong water on just to ruin the cardboard sleeves. Like, yeah, this is clearly a very classy guy. In his fury, he left his modem. Now, I work in IT and quickly became aware that when you owe money to the internet service provider, you cannot cancel your account. A few days later, he texted me asking if he left the modem, but I told him I had no idea where the modem was. Maybe he destroyed it while having his rampage. Now, we were not on an unlimited data plan, so my plan was to open my laptop every day and open up a high-definition 4K video and then just close my laptop and let the video run all day. Well, I think I got maybe 5 months of free internet. It was kind of a running joke every night after work, wondering if it was going to be the day he finally shut down the account. And at this point in my life, I'm just curious how many gigabytes of internet he had to pay for, which is all really because of a closed laptop streaming high-definition content all day. Because trust me, this guy absolutely deserved it. Holy crap, your roommate sounds like a piece of work. Instead of hiring movers or, I don't know, making some friends, this guy literally destroyed everything instead of moving it. Like, dude, what is going on right now? Why not just sell it yourself or something like that? Or leave it on the curb or like donate it? I'm sure there's some service available that'll be like, oh yeah, we'll come by and pick it up. Like, don't destroy stuff. Like, what's going on right now? It's no one's fault that he didn't pay rent on time except for himself. He's an idiot. So I personally love what the original poster did. This guy decided to be super petty, and I love that kind of energy. Because from the sounds of it, this crappy roommate deserved to get knocked down a peg or two, even if that involved his wallet in the process. Am I the jerk for what happened on my family vacation after my brother's wife became incredibly controlling, trying to dictate what we could and could not do on our vacation? Here's how it went down. Okay, I want to start off by saying that for privacy reasons, this post will be a throwaway account, and all names are fake in this story. Anyways, last month I went on a family vacation that was planned by my brother Eric and his wife Natalie. It was meant to be a chill week at a cabin by the lake, with me, Eric, Natalie, and our youngest sister Jessica, as well as our parents coming along too. From the very start, Natalie was particular about how the trip should go. She created a full itinerary, color-coded Google Docs, meal planning charts, even mandatory tech-free hours. Now, I get that people like structure, but this was less of a vacation and more like a summer camp with a drill sergeant. Jess and I brought it up gently to Eric, saying that maybe Natalie could tone it down just a little bit, but he brushed us off and said she worked really hard on planning and that we should appreciate her effort. So I thought to myself, okay, fine, let's see how it goes. Well, fast forward to day 2 of the trip, and Natalie gets visibly upset. And this is all because we missed the scheduled group kayaking time. But it's like we were literally sitting on the porch having wine and laughing with our dad. Later, she snapped at Jess for bringing a Bluetooth speaker because apparently it ruined the ambiance, and glared at me for checking my phone. By day 4, Jess and I were completely over it. So we decided to accidentally sleep in through the morning hike and instead made a pancake breakfast with our mom. Natalie walked in, looked around, and just said, "Wow, so I guess the schedule doesn't matter anymore." Eric then pulled me aside and said I needed to stop undermining his wife. At that point, I was tired of the passive aggressiveness, so I told him point blank that his wife was sucking the joy out of the trip, and even Jess backed me up. Eric then got really defensive and said we were acting like entitled teenagers who couldn't handle a bit of structure. Well, Natalie cried that night and ended up leaving early. Ever since then, neither of them have spoken to me or Jess, and our mom is now trying to play mediator. She said that Natalie feels deeply disrespected and that we owe her an apology, but honestly, I think Natalie was being completely overbearing and treating us like kids at a retreat she was leading. So am I the jerk for not following the schedule and basically refusing to participate in Natalie's over-the-top vacation plans? Because right now I'm still incredibly pissed off. Oh no, there's no way you're the jerk. I think Natalie's a narcissist and a complete loser, and the fact that she's trying to be like, oh wow, the schedule doesn't matter anymore, does it? And I just want to be like, no, not when you're gonna act like this. It's one thing to have plans set in place where it's like, okay, we could do this at this time, but to sit there and micromanage everybody's vacation and act like some kind of dictator is just so annoying in my opinion. opinion. And yeah, after 4 days of that, I would be over it too. Like, there's nothing wrong with having a pancake breakfast with mom or drinking wine on the porch with your dad. Like, seriously, get a life, lady. Just because people don't stick to the schedule doesn't mean it's a shot at you. Just because you made this your entire personality doesn't mean everybody else is going to do the same. So no, you don't owe anybody an apology, and if anything, Natalie owes you an apology, because like you said, she was overbearing and treating you like children, and that is absolutely unacceptable. An entitled Karen neglects her stupid kid, allowing him to swing on the handrails at the theme park I work at, forcing me to put all of them in their place. Here's what happened. Okay, so I want to share my experience of working at a very popular theme park in Florida, a magical rat planet of sorts, if you know what I mean. This happened during my time working in attractions. I was in a position called Cell. I heard they no longer have that position after the first attraction remodeled. Anyways, the position was simple. Basically, all 3 lines, Fast Pass, Standby, and Single Rider all stopped there, and Cell would separate them into 2 rooms where they would watch a stylized video that explained the ride before they made it to the grouper who would place them in the ride itself. The 2 rooms had waiting areas, rows 1 and row 2, in front of the doors separated by metal handrails. Often children and surprisingly some adults would hang on the rails. Now, a few times people were injured by falling off, so this was prohibited. We basically had a spiel where we would say, for your safety and the safety of those around you, please don't sit, stand, or swing on the handrails. Thank you. On this particular day, I was with a new guy that would later become a good friend. It was extremely busy, and I was the cell while the new guy watched and learned. I separated 2 large groups into the waiting area after I closed the doors for the 2 groups that had entered the video rooms. Well, as usual, a few people and a kid around 10 years old started sitting and hanging on the handrails. So I did the speech in my very professional and polite voice, and the adults got off the rails, but the kid remained. I then stared for a few moments at him and his mom and his grandma, but he remained sitting and swinging, so I said the speech again. But still, nothing happened. The mom and grandma continued laughing with one another, while the kid continued playing on the rails. I then did this speech 2 more times, and the other guests were all staring at them silently. It was weird because they simply didn't notice 150 eyes all on them just looking like, wait a second, what are you doing? After the 4th time with the speech, I was irritated, so I walked over and I sternly said, get down. The little boy nearly jumped from his skin and immediately got down, running to his mom. I walked back over to the cell console and the new guy was trying not to laugh when the mom stormed over angrily, red in the face. She said to me, hey, that was rude. You could have at least said please. But I just remained quiet for a few seconds, because if I spoke at that time, something ignorant would have slipped out. So after I relaxed my thoughts, I replied sternly, please go back to row 1, please. Now she seemed really shaken up, but eventually walked away, which was only after a semi-lengthy stare between the 2 of us. But at this point, the new guy simply couldn't hold it in anymore and he started laughing. And after that, we became great friends for many years because this situation was completely stupid. Oh man, I always love it when parents who are completely irresponsible for their kid try to act like saying please is somehow going to make their idiot kid get off the rails. Because what's going to happen is that kid's going to get hurt, and then they're going to blame everybody else but themselves for not taking care of their kid and being like, hey, get off the handrail, idiot. Like, these are the type of parents who would absolutely sue the theme park and be like, oh, this is your fault somehow. My kid cracked his head open because you didn't say anything. So yeah, good for you for putting them in their place, because this is some stupid behavior. Today, I messed up by allowing human resources to hire a guy I dated once. And now that he's my boss, he is making my life a living nightmare. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, for a bit of context, I'm not good at remembering faces, especially the faces of people I only went on a date with once. Early in my college career, me and my current boyfriend had a rough patch and were broken up. After a few months of going through the 5 stages of grief with my friends, they advised me to do what any lonely and sad girl would do, and that is go on Tinder. I do just that, and after a string of mixed experiences, I matched with my future boss. He was an odd, nervous fellow, mostly the type to ask a string of questions and not add much else. Apparently we had some classes together, hence why he was excited to match with me, but I didn't really vibe with him. So after the date, I politely told him that I wasn't entirely interested. He pushed on asking me why, and I said I was gonna put a hold on dating for now and just focus on myself. Well, at least that was my original plan. Life happens, and my boyfriend and I reconciled like a week after that last date in a very romantic way. He starts walking me to class again, and then suddenly I get a very long and bitter text from my last date. I didn't spend too much time reading it and just promptly deleted the text and I blocked him. Well, fast forward to the present, and the last boss at my company quit. I was offered his position, but I wasn't quite ready for it. So they put out the position to the wider job market. And wouldn't you know it, my date from years ago applies. He seemed good on paper, having all the credentials and personality to fit the company culture, but then I messed up. He told me that we knew each other. I should have probably looked deeper into that statement before moving forward with him, but honestly, I just wanted the manager responsibilities off my back. Unfortunately, I only remembered who he was when I found his cell phone number on my block list. And now, with him as my boss, he's making making my work life unbearable. He dismisses every advice or statement I make, he gives me impossible deadlines, and recently at our 4th of July party, he had the gall to imply that I missed out for picking the wrong guy to date. And it's like, bro, the only mistake I made was giving you the time of day in the first place. But don't worry, I'll get human resources on your butt soon enough. And trust me, you will absolutely regret it. Okay, I have got to repeat what someone else said in the comment section because they pretty much hit the nail on the head. This is the definition of a hostile work environment. Like, dude, there is absolutely no excuse for this kind of crap. This guy really comes in here and says, oh man, you should have gone with me. You should have dated me instead of your other boyfriend. And then this guy's supposed to be your boss? Like, what's going on right now? This is so unbelievably awful and just so disgusting. Because seriously, what kind of point is this guy making? He's trying to be like, oh, you should have gone with me. But if this is how you're acting, then trust me, the original poster definitely dodged a train. Like, can you imagine being with this guy all the time? Like, that would be a nightmare, bro. There's no way I would ever want to put up with that. So yeah, it is kind of a mess up, but honestly, I think human resources is going to see that you are not the problem here. Because what this guy's doing is very unprofessional and completely inappropriate. An entitled Karen causes chaos at a children's museum as she literally releases all the toddlers out of their daycare facility in some kind of stupid attempt to find her kids, causing all of these toddlers to run out of the facility and all over the museum. She then got so aggressive that she ended up getting banned for life from this facility, as she literally tried to blame everybody but herself. Here's what happened. To start things out, our town has a children's museum. It's incredibly cute and it's full of activities from babies all the way until you're about 9 years old or so. Now, the baby and toddler areas have gates that latch for obvious reasons. Well, this entitled Karen decided that she would use authority to have her toddler leave. So she opens the toddler gate and tells her child it's time to leave right now. Well, her kid doesn't move and clearly wants to stay and play. Instead of closing the gate, retrieving the toddler, and just going on with life, Karen decided to hold the gate open and start demanding that her toddler listen. So of course, other toddlers book it out, and Karen continues to hold the gate open and does nothing to prevent this, and just keeps yelling at her kid. Well, when this happened, there is instant chaos as parents and grandparents are scrambling to catch their escaped toddlers. These little kids are running to the open elevators, they're running to the balconies, the manager's office, and my child was booking it towards the stairs. I'm about to catch her when she ducks into the art room, and I notice a toddler nearly to the stair landing, which are like 2-story and made of stone, glance quickly and see grandma going as fast as she can, but nowhere near fast enough. So I leave my kid for just a second to snatch up this kid and deliver him to a grateful grandma. I then hear dad say, close the gate, as he has one twin in surfboard meltdown and another has just booked it out of the gate towards me and the paint room. This Karen then yells at him that it's not her job to watch his kid and that she's got 3 kids of her own to handle. Meanwhile, she's still holding open the gate. I'm now acting as a shepherd of sorts between the toddlers and the stairs. There's now paint everywhere, with unsupervised toddlers not wearing their paint-proof smocks going absolutely hog wild. With this sudden chaos, a manager came to see what was happening, and 2 dads point to the Karen who finally picked up her child and shut the gate. The Karen then tells the manager how she felt unsafe. That man was yelling at me to close the gate, and it was here that she demanded actions. By then, I had my kid in my arms, as all the other toddlers are corralled, and me and grandma back up the dads and say how irresponsible her behavior was. Karen then launches into a tirade, saying that it's not her job to watch all of our children. The manager then tells her that she's banned, so she then starts screaming. So security gather her and her 3 kids and march them out. But I really feel bad for the kids because honestly, how entitled do you have to be? She could have simply said, I'm sorry, I froze when the kids ran out. I wasn't thinking straight. Literally anything, but instead she wanted to act like she was a victim of some kind of unsafe environment after she released half a dozen toddlers into dangerous situations. And honestly, I'm still blown away by this. Wow, you've got to be really stupid to let something like this happen. Seriously, this is just absolutely uncalled for. Not only did she put like all these other kids at risk of falling down the stairs or just blatantly getting hurt, she tried to blame these other guys for being hostile towards her. But it's like, lady, you're literally opening up Pandora's box and you refuse to close it. Either walk in and get your stupid kids or close the gate and wait for them to come to you. Like, it's not that hard, dude. What are you doing? So I think it's great that she got banned from that place because she is clearly irresponsible and you definitely do not want her around kids. Am I the jerk for telling my dad to pay for his own holidays after he literally has shown my entire life that he favors my brother way more than he favors me? Here's what's going on. Okay, so my dad has always favored my brother, which has been clear in how he supports him and celebrates his successes. I could go on for days with many examples, but here's a pretty big one. When my brother gets good news, my dad gets emotional and often teary-eyed. In contrast, when I graduated university and hosted my dad abroad, he whispered to my mom that he regretted coming and he wished he stayed home because he thought thought the dinner was too expensive, our bed was uncomfortable, and our fridge smelled like kimchi. That comment really stung, especially because he didn't say this to me directly. Rather, I overheard him as I was about to fall asleep. This was at night and I was on the couch in the other room as I gave my parents our double bed. For a bit of context, my brother is lazy and only got his current job with help from my parents, which is in contrast because I moved out at 21, built an independent life, and I never asked for any financial help. Now, as I'm working on a business with my partner, my dad said to me, if you ever want to gift us a holiday or a car, don't feel like you need to spend too much money, because he really often assumes that we'll pay him. But I responded back by saying, you can pay for your own holidays. You've got a job, right? Which now leaves me feeling really bad. So honestly, am I the jerk for the way I responded to my dad? Because at this point, I'm honestly not sure if I made a mistake. Oh man, your dad is super toxic. It's obvious your brother's the golden child and you cannot do anything right, which really sucks because like, dude, you hosted him abroad. You literally took care of him overseas. And this guy's trying to be like, I regret showing up. The bed's uncomfortable and this place really sucks. Like, dude, this guy's an idiot. He is super ungrateful and obviously doesn't appreciate you the way that he appreciates his son. So no, you're not the jerk for saying, oh, you could pay for your own holidays. You've got a job, do it yourself. If I was in your shoes, I would have said the same thing because your dad is clearly having favoritism and that is not fair for you in the slightest. An entitled Karen slapped me twice in the face while we were at a rock concert. So I decided to get some petty revenge by filling her purse up with some beer that she definitely didn't know about, leaving her stranded at the concert as she couldn't call herself an Uber. Here's how I did it. Okay, so this was years ago when we went to a rock concert, and the crowd was energetic, but they were also cool to each other. It was mostly people in their 40s who were up and down on the floor, but there was no pushing and shoving. Everyone found their spot and we were happy to enjoy the show. Well, the little miss thing that pushes away into the crowd starts telling people that they are too tall to be on the floor, purposefully dancing into people to get them to move. I mean, I think you know the type of person I'm talking about. Well, my friend and I made a little wall of ourselves to shield our wives from this idiot. She even tried to shove me aside and said my wife was her friend. Well, this entitled Karen's wild dancing and flailing caused her hand to hit me in the face, where she then stepped on my feet multiple times, and 3 or 4 people told her to calm her crap down. A few minutes later, she hit me again, and as she turned her back to me to argue with someone else, I decided to get some petty revenge by dumping most of a very large beer into her purse. The 3 ladies behind us saw this and gave me the thumbs up and just laughed. Well, about 20 minutes later, the entitled Karen reached into her purse to get her phone and instead found a beer soup. She tried to yell at people, but I indicated my beer can was full and turned my back. She then tried to get security involved, but they all just laughed at her. After the show, she was outside begging someone to call her an Uber since her phone wouldn't work. And maybe this was a bit too far, but honestly, it seemed justified at the time. Okay, dude, if you're gonna be at a concert and you're gonna be this obnoxious, then congratulations, you get to deal with whatever happens to you. Like, I'm serious, this is so uncalled for. You're disturbing people, you're pushing people aside, you're slapping people in the face, and you're stepping on feet. At that point, I'm sorry, but it really seems like you want to get in trouble. You want someone to yell at you, and you want to have some kind of repercussion go your way. Because this behavior is super obnoxious, and honestly, just go find somewhere else to dance, instead of bothering people who literally want nothing to do with you. My entitled sister and her husband tried to hijack my business, as my boyfriend and I brought them into our business simply as a favor. Because after we found out they've been trying to tell people they're the owners of our business, we decided to put our foot down and kick them out entirely, resulting in my entire family turning on me in a way that honestly I never expected. Okay, so my sister and I had a falling out, and my husband and I want to know if we should apologize or just move on. For a bit of background, I've been running a business for quite a few years now, and it was small, but I never really tried to make it anything big. I was content just getting by and doing something I enjoyed. Eventually, I started dating someone who had the time, energy, and resources to start helping me grow. He rebranded my business and it grew. It was fun, and eventually I got my partner more involved. He went to a trade show with me, and we got an idea together to grow the business even more. My boyfriend even had a great idea to include my sister and her spouse, because we thought it would benefit them financially and bring us closer. But my God, this was a huge mistake. Even though my boyfriend and I invested about 50% into the expansion, and my sister and her sister-in-law's husband invested nothing, it wasn't long before they started telling everyone it was their business. I would talk to people who would tell me they talked to the owners, which was funny to me because it was actually my boyfriend and I who risked everything financially to purchase the expansion and grow it. We just invited them to come along for free, and we even gave my brother-in-law a job because he had been unemployed for years. Well, it all went downhill from there. My boyfriend and I aren't big on attention, so we didn't really care that people thought my sister and brother-in-law owned the business. But then they started giving their friends huge discounts, sometimes even for free, and they were doing it without our consent. On top of all of that, my boyfriend and I found out that my dad, who handled accounting, was actually paying my brother-in-law double what we discussed for working for the company. And yeah, all all of this was without our knowledge. Meanwhile, my boyfriend declined to take a salary for all the work he was doing for what was now our business, even after we had invested his own personal money into it. I got upset enough and I tried talking to my sister, and my boyfriend tried talking to my brother-in-law, but things quickly fell apart. My brother-in-law started telling my boyfriend that he wasn't going to do parts of the job. So my boyfriend and I took on all the work while my brother-in-law was making a double salary, and my boyfriend was taking nothing. I didn't even increase my salary while we were trying to grow. We realized that maybe inviting them to join us was a mistake, but we truly had the best of intentions. We tried to find ways to talk to them, but they got passive-aggressive, and recently, my boyfriend finally told my brother-in-law to get lost. Well, he basically said he would go do that, and now they're no longer working for us. Now, through all of this, my parents have sided with my sister and brother-in-law, but they haven't even heard our side. And this whole situation hurts because my sister has always been my best friend, but I can't figure out what we did. We have asked, but at this point, they're only rallying the troops against us. I've tried talking to my sister, who won't respond to me, and I want to protect my partner, and I think he was justified after having dealt with my brother-in-law's bad attitude for weeks. If we did something wrong, we really just want to apologize. So truly, are we at fault here because we just don't know what to do? Dude, your sister is so stupid it's not even funny. Seriously, they suck so much. You brought them onto this as some kind of like favor to be like, okay, we're gonna help you out and we're gonna help you figure out your life and like be involved in the family business. Like even your dad's involved in this, so like it makes sense to bring them on board as well. But it honestly sounds like all of them are crooked and very corrupt. Like your dad's going behind your back and paying your brother-in-law like double the salary he would normally be getting. Meanwhile, you and your boyfriend are getting paid like nothing, and they're trying to sit there and be like, oh yeah, we own this business, this is ours. But it's like, dude, you haven't put any money down on this. This is most definitely not your business, and it's like, why would you try to claim it is? So in my opinion, this is all a recipe for disaster that literally you did not cause. You tried to do the right thing by helping them out, and they literally stabbed you in the back. So no, of course you're not the jerk. This is just some petty, jealous, insane behavior, and honestly, you guys do not deserve this in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled jerk screams at my kids after they accidentally bumped the side of his car while playing catch, claiming that they did all this damage to his car with his windshield and a scratch on the car, despite the fact that they literally didn't do any of that. So I decided to maliciously comply when this guy wanted to talk to an officer, as this idiot ended up getting a ticket for being parked in a tow-away zone and was then ordered to move his car or else he would get in even more trouble. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that this happened July 4th weekend. To start things out, I'm a member and have a place in a self-contained camp community. A nice quiet place with a lake and pools and a restaurant and things like that. I love it because my kid can be a kid like I was and go wander with friends and disappear until dinner time, and I simply don't have to worry. Our place is on a small cul-de-sac that is grassed in, and we use it for kids to play and set up cornhole and all other stuff. Now, because it's July 4th, a bunch of people have guests, so the park is more full than normal, and a guest of someone in the circle parked at the edge of the grass. Well, my kid and another kid were playing catch, and one of the kids missed the ball and it hit the parked car. Well, the owner of the car comes out hot and is going at the kids. So me and the other kid's parents both go over to calm the situation. Obviously, if there's damage, we'll take care of it because it is from our kids. But this guy starts going off about all these dents and this big scratch and a crack in the windshield and all this other stuff as if it's the kid's fault. Now, I was willing to be reasonable, but when you start saying you want a ton of extra work done trying to blame my kid, I get a little less reasonable. So we're going back and forth, and then he says the magic word that if you aren't willing to pay for everything, I'm gonna call the park safety officer to come and deal with it. And so, knowing exactly where this was going, I smiled and said yes, let's go ahead and do that. So the officer comes out, and to no one's surprise but this guy, the area his car is parked at is a no parking area. So not only does the officer tell him to deal with it, because if he had followed the rules and parked in an actual parking zone, this would not have happened. And because the guy told him that he'd parked there for like 2 days with no issues before now, he got a nice fat ticket and was ordered to move his car. This idiot then turned bright red, but didn't say another word and moved his car, and we thankfully didn't hear or see from him for the rest of the weekend. Okay, this is some annoying stuff, man. This guy clearly has a crappy car, so the second he saw kids like accidentally bump into it, he tried to be like, oh yeah, now you're gonna fix all this other stuff. And it's like, dude, they probably like barely bumped your like door panel, and you're trying to be like, oh yeah, they cracked my windshield and they scratched my car. And it's like, no they didn't, dude, you're literally overreacting. And I just love the fact that this guy got a ticket. Like seriously, this is some fantastic karma. He literally wanted to make this into a bigger deal than it needed to be, and honestly, he got exactly what he deserved. So this really was some fantastic malicious compliance because this guy absolutely deserved it. Am I the jerk jerk for not covering my neighbor's grocery bill after they repeatedly borrowed my stuff without returning it? Because right now I feel kinda guilty after they called me stingy, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. So I live in an apartment building and I have a neighbor who I will call Kayla, who's friendly but a bit careless. Over the past 6 months, Kayla's borrowed several things from me, including tools, a ladder, even my Wi-Fi password when her internet was down. I didn't mind at first, but she's terrible about returning stuff. My screwdriver set is still missing. She kept my ladder for weeks until I asked for it back, and she used my Wi-Fi for a month without offering to chip in for the bill. Each time I've been polite and I let it slide, thinking that she'd get better about it. But last weekend, I run into Kayla at the grocery store, and she was at checkout with a full cart of stuff, but realized that she had forgotten her wallet. She then asked if I could cover her $85 bill, promising to pay me back that evening. Now, I hesitated because of her track record with my stuff, and because I'm on a tight budget myself. I told her I could spot her $20 for essentials, but couldn't cover the whole bill, especially since it included things like expensive snacks and beer. She then got frustrated, saying I was unneighborly and that she would have done the same for me. She ended up leaving most of her items behind and only buying what she could with the cash she found in her pocket. Ever since then, Kayla's been giving me the cold shoulder, and another neighbor said that Kayla called me stingy. I feel bad because I know forgetting a wallet is stressful, and maybe I could have helped more since we're neighbors, but I also feel like her pattern of borrowing without reciprocating made me wary. So seriously, am I the jerk for not covering her full grocery bill? Because right now I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong. Okay, someone made a good point in the comments because they basically said, okay, since you're stingy, that means you no longer need to loan things to her. And yeah, that is like a really good point. If she wants to sit there and be like, oh wow, you're not very neighborly, then it's like, cool, okay, I'm never giving you anything ever again. Like, talk about biting the hand that's feeding you. Like, how stupid can you get? So no, you're definitely not the jerk because Kayla sounds like a complete moron. Am I the jerk for preventing my pregnant sister access to my food? Because after I set up a mini fridge to prevent her from eating everything I've made, she's saying that I'm being stingy and my family is slowly turning on me, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my sister is staying with me temporarily after leaving her husband. Now, I have a small apartment, but I let her move in because she had nowhere else to go, and on top of that, she's 6 months pregnant. I wasn't very pleased about this situation, but she is my sister after all, so I helped out. But the main issue here has been food. Now, I am pretty disciplined about what I eat because I am in a bulk stage and I'm hitting the gym regularly. I portion things, I label them, and I plan for the entire week. But every other day, something's gone and it's making me go crazy. She'll drink all my expensive shakes, polish off meals I've prepped for work, eat snacks I've saved for post-run, and even finish leftovers I was planning to turn into new meals. When I bring it up, she shrugs and says things like, oh, cravings hit hard, my hormones are acting up, and you're just being mean. I then asked her to replace things that she finishes, or at least ask before taking something. Or maybe, oh, I don't know, manage her own food for God's sake. But she refuses to do anything about it. So last week I ordered a small mini fridge and I set it up in my bedroom, and it's just big enough for my meal prep, my snacks, and my drinks. I didn't make a scene about it, and I just quietly started putting all my stuff there. Well, she noticed 2 days later and got super pissed off. She said I was being childish, dramatic, and treating her like a thief, but I calmly told her I was tired of my groceries disappearing and that this was the easiest way to avoid fights. Well, she's now been sulking and has told our parents after her failed marriage that her brother is also alienating her, and she is just a burden for everyone. My mom then called and said that I should understand that pregnancy isn't easy, and especially for her situation. And you know what? I don't think I'm being cruel. I'm still letting her live here rent-free, and I've even offered to order food or cook together, but I just want my food to be left alone. A part of me understands she is going through a lot of trouble, but honestly, it's at my expense. So am I the jerk here? Because right now I'm very frustrated. Okay, I want to first start off by saying that the original poster answered a question I had in my mind that other people have asked about in the comment section. Where on earth is she gonna go once the baby is born? And apparently the original poster said they're sending her to the parents. And seriously, this is like the best decision they could have made. The way his sister is acting is super obnoxious and it is completely unfair. And obviously you're not being ignorant to your sister's situation, but also the fact that she's eating all your food is completely unacceptable. Like seriously, this isn't fair for you and you don't deserve to have like no food to eat. So no, you're not the jerk for setting up a mini fridge because honestly, I would do the exact same thing. An entitled Karen pours my beer all over me after I accidentally bumped into her, spilling just a little bit on her. So I decided to get some petty revenge by pouring the entire can of beer I had in my hands all over her head. Here's how I did it. I'm a 28-year-old male and I was at a music festival that I'd been looking forward to for months with 2 of my friends. There's no assigned seating at the outdoor venue and there are a few hundred people. While the opener was on, I went to get 3 drinks for me and my friends. And I had a beer can in one hand and 2 open plastic cups in the other. On my way back to try and find my friends, the main artist was starting. The cheering and music was amazing, the energy was exactly what I'd been looking forward to, and the crowd was all trying to get closer closer to the stage. Well, then I was bumped by somebody and I spilled some of my beer on myself and another girl. Well, she was not happy and tried to say something to me, but I simply couldn't hear her over the noise. I apologized the best I could, knowing she likely couldn't hear me, and tried to continue through the crowd. When I turned away, she grabbed my hand and wrestled 2 of the drinks away from me, only to throw them on the floor, spilling more on the both of us and everyone around us. I couldn't believe what was happening, and I looked back at her trying to understand why. When I saw her and the grin on her face, I knew exactly why. So you know what? I took my 3rd drink, the full can of beer, and I poured it right on her head. I then immediately turned around to head back to the bar and get more drinks. I then heard people yelling behind me asking, "Hey, what was that all about?" But I realized as I went to defend myself what I had really just done, and how nobody around us would have saw the first part of the interaction. So you know what? I just kept on walking and I didn't look back because honestly, there's nothing that would have made this situation any better. Oh man, good for you for getting back at that person because what they did was so malicious. They smashed your drinks for no reason. Like, dude, it's an accident. There's people all over the place. It's not like you did it on purpose. So yeah, in my opinion, I think you were well within your rights to put your revenge on this lady because the way she acted was completely uncalled for. Am I the jerk for deciding not to attend my sister's wedding after I found out she has been excluding me on purpose from pre-wedding events? Because right now this is somehow being blamed on me and honestly I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I've had a strained relationship with 2 of my sisters and their partners for years, and this has always felt one-sided. I was the one initiating, planning, hosting, and even paying just to keep the relationship going. They rarely reciprocated and often ignored boundaries or just acted entitled. For the upcoming wedding of one of my sisters, she made it clear she didn't want me as a bridesmaid, which is completely fine. But then she gave me a long list of things she wanted me to do for her, like I was part of the wedding party in some kind of way. And that felt pretty unfair, especially considering our history. The final straw came when I learned I was deliberately excluded from a major pre-wedding event. People I've had serious issues with were invited and kept secret from me, and I only found out through a third party. It felt really disrespectful, so I decided not to attend the pre-wedding event even after I paid, or the wedding at all. Ever since then, I've gone low to no contact with them, and honestly, I'm now being painted as the villain to the extended family and any mutual friends. I'm also being accused of burning bridges and replacing them with other people in my life. Now, I've stayed silent about all this, but part of me still wonders if I'm in the wrong. So seriously, am I at fault here? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, if someone's deliberately excluding me like this, where there's like major pre-wedding events and they're like, okay, let's involve everybody except this person, then honestly, that's like the final straw for me. Never mind the fact that they wanted you to be a bridesmaid without actually being one, or just, I don't know, treating you like garbage in general. Like this for me would have been the one thing I just could not stand behind because it would feel so disrespectful. And it's so ironic that they're trying to be like, oh yeah, you're burning bridges and you're replacing us. But it's like, okay, well, what choice do I have? If I'm really burning bridges by pulling back and going no contact, then guess what? It probably wasn't a very good bridge to begin with. So no, I don't think you're the jerk. You definitely didn't do anything wrong from the sounds of it, and it really seems like your family is just super toxic. My entitled friend tried to guilt trip me into lending her money, all because I bought an expensive camera, to which she said if I can afford that, then I can afford to lend her some money. And I'm honestly so heartbroken because I thought this really was my friend, but clearly that's not the case. Here's how it happened. Okay, so this happened recently and I honestly still can't believe the nerve. I'm a 21-year-old female and I recently made what I would call a big girl purchase. I bought this popular camera because I'm trying to take my career as a videographer really seriously. I've been working towards this for months and it's not something I consider cheap. I was super excited and I told my friend about it, and she seemed really happy for me. Well, the next day she hits me up and says that she's short on money and wants to borrow some from me. Now, I didn't even ask her what it was for, but instead I just told her I didn't really have the full amount that she was asking for, but I could help her with maybe half of it. Well, she then says that if I could afford to buy a camera like that, which by the way, yes, it was expensive, then apparently it won't hurt to lend her the full amount. I mean, it's not like she won't pay me back. Well, I didn't respond for a while, but I ended up telling her that I wasn't going to give her anything at all. Well, I haven't heard from her since, and I honestly thought that was incredibly wild, because I really thought this was my friend, but there were clearly some strings attached, and that honestly is incredibly frustrating. Oh man, this is one of those friends that literally only comes to you when they need something, and not one that's actually gonna like, I don't know, celebrate your victories. Because if my friend, who is a videographer, bought a camera like that, you know, a professional one that's expensive and like really matters, I would be super stoked for that. I would be so happy for them and be like, oh my gosh, congratulations. I would be cheering them on and be like, okay, this is awesome. awesome. But this friend literally took the opposite approach. They seriously tried to guilt trip you and be like, oh, if you can buy that camera, then you can easily lend me some money. So yeah, that's clearly not a good friend and not someone you would ever want to associate with. My management and coworkers are constantly mistreating me and the rest of the bartenders I work with, as they treat us like trash and say to us that if we don't like the way we're being treated, then we can complain to our union representative. So we decided to maliciously comply and do exactly that, as we went to our union rep and nailed out exactly what our job responsibilities are, forcing my managers and my coworkers to adhere to this in a way that I'm sure they are not going to forget anytime soon. And I'm honestly feeling so good about this because I feel like my job just got significantly easier. Here's how it went down. To start things out, we're technically government employees. And don't ask me why, but we're also union. Yeah, I am literally a bartender in a restaurant where everyone is a unionized government employee. So I'm sure you can probably see where this is going or what kind of environment this has engendered. So first off, the employees. There are 3 full-time bartenders. As a person who has bartended or managed bars off and on for decades, we actually got hosed. Like, I have never made so little money working in the service industry in my life. But we have a pension and benefits, so that's pretty cool. We consistently work our butts off while we watch our floor counting their hundreds of dollars at the end of their shift, while we make only what happens directly at our bar. The servers are mandated to tip out 2% of drink sales only, but regularly they ignorantly throw dimes across the table at us and make comments about, oh, it was only 50 cents, but I rounded up to $1 because you earned it. Yes, comments like this happen on the regular. Basically, the union bartenders are not allowed to serve tables, and the servers consistently remind us of that. Now, here's where it gets really bad. They expect the bartenders to also run their food, clean and clear their tables, and still only tip to the literal penny. And this is just one aspect of many problems going on. Now, when it comes to management, we've had numerous conversations with them, as our servers consistently abandon their tables. They go outside to smoke, they hang out on their phones, and they consistently do the barest of minimums. But because they're not on the floor, we have to be. We are mandated and guaranteed 15-minute breaks twice a shift, and one 30-minute break that we never get. And this is without even mentioning once that management refuses to hire any new bartenders, all due to their budget constraints. We've spoken to management numerous times, and all we get told is that servers have the floor, and that we can file a grievance with the union. And this is where our malicious compliance and revenge comes into play. So myself and the other 2 bartenders sat down with our union representatives, and we hammered out the exact parameters of our jobs, as well as management duties and obligations of our floor. We got everything highlighted, and we now have laminated cardstock behind the bar with the printed and highlighted aspects of our jobs, our job parameters, and our job guarantees. Well, a few weeks ago, we started every shift the same way. Servers would regularly just walk behind the bar to get drinks for themselves or for their clients. But you know what? Sorry, you're not a bartender, so you can't come behind the bar. They would try to protest and be like, what? What are you talking about? But we would say, sorry, we can't take tables and you can't serve drinks. We'll get into it as soon as we can. So now the servers have to wait on us to pour their drinks. And I'm talking whether it's pop, water, beer, or even if they get some ice. And honestly, that's just step 1. We now also take our 15 minutes and 30-minute breaks accordingly. As such, any and all drink service just completely stops. And here's the best part. Our management otherwise is completely useless. If they're chatting with their friends or hiding in the offices, they now have no choice but to come down and man the bar while we do so. They have to make drinks, stock the bar, which we always ensure is needing to be done, by the way, and they put away and polish our glassware. And this is important as we have very specific criteria for our house drinks and what type of vessels they get poured in. And my god, this has been so amusing to watch. But we enjoy our breaks, and I'm now catching up on some reading for the first time in a while. It's only been a few weeks, but the servers seem to be getting it, and all of a sudden there are 2 new bartenders in training on the schedule and 2 more apparently being hired. So maybe this malicious compliance stuff does work, because my job just got a lot easier. Okay, this is one of the few times where I'm like, yes, unions are amazing, because having a job like this honestly can be so frustrating. You have people talking down to you and you're like literally not making any money, and they have the audacity to go around and be like, oh wow, look at you. Here's your $1 tip, sorry about that. It was only 50 cents but I rounded up. And then they walk behind your bar and just disrespect you, or they just don't help out. Like, my god, this is no way to treat your coworkers. Not to mention coworkers who are in a union, dude. So good for you for putting your foot down and being like, no, we're not gonna be treated this way. Because honestly, I think having a union in this situation really did save your skin. Otherwise, I'm sure your coworkers would continue to take advantage of you. My childhood best friends are treating me entirely different after my business took off and has become successful. Because right now, I feel like everybody's turned against me and I seriously just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, to start things out, lately I've been going through some purges in my life. My 2 childhood best friends started changing the way they treat me when their business started taking off. And oh, not just them, even their families who used to be so nice to me when I was nothing started being different. All 3 three of us were so close as kids. We shared dreams and ambitions because we all came from poor families, with me being the poorest because we live in the slums. There are days actually that their goals, plans, and dreams are bigger than mine, and I just say wow and I cheer them on. When it comes to me, I'm just gonna try my best to get out of this poverty because I just know that I have that strong will. Well, fast forward to adulthood, and in our early 20s, one of us started a small business. Let's call him Adam for the sake of the story, and he did this because he did not finish college. And me and the other one, let's call him Billy, went into corporate. I was so happy for Adam. I even started promoting his business, trying to find ways in which he can increase more sales. I mean, I loved helping him out. His business went booming for a year or two, but after that, it's not doing good anymore. And even to this day, it's still trying to survive. But during those times when Adam's business started to become weak, I was not there. I disappeared. Both Adam and Billy did not check on me. I was actually diagnosed with bipolar disorder. But when I am okay, I will just come back like nothing happened, even if I was a danger for myself. But they did not care to ask me what had happened. And you know what? It's okay. I know they both have things going on too, and I do not want to be a burden to them. As time goes by, I learned how to get out of the matrix and also got married to a very amazing and supportive man. I was eventually able to start my own business because of his motivation, and we are doing amazing. Well, Adam and Billy started seeing this progress and they started changing. When we would go to hang out, we would all chip in, but now they're expecting me to pay the whole bill. I then started hearing joking side comments from Adam. He will say stuff like, "Oh, that's fine, it won't hurt you because you're rich now." And I really just didn't mind because he's just like that sometimes. Then there came a time in which Adam started borrowing money from me, but unfortunately he never paid back, but tries to live a rich and famous lifestyle even if his business isn't doing well. I tried several times being understanding and giving him some kind of grace, but I really got pissed off, and now I've just cut him off. But then here comes Billy, and this is the most hurtful one because I never thought he would be like Adam. Little by little, I started feeling like a bank for him and his family, who were so nice to me when we were kids. They always ask and borrow money from me, but the difference is that yes, they pay me on time, but they only remember me when they need more money. And they were seriously not like that before. I used to give their family presents and gifts for holidays and birthdays because I am really thankful for them being nice to me when I was absolutely nothing. But last week, I was not able to send some greetings and a gift to Billy's mom. This is because I'm actually 7 months pregnant now, and I got so caught up preparing for my baby. We're also building a house, so lots of things are going on right now. And this is the first year that I failed. And since I was busy, I also didn't lend Billy any money for his mom's birthday celebration. But I really think his mom took this negatively. I posted my baby's first ultrasound on Facebook, and before she used to send a heart for my post, but yesterday she did not. And I tried reaching out to try and talk to her, but she just doesn't answer anymore. So seriously, money indeed changes people. And most of the time, people simply do not want you to succeed. Wow, this is a really tragic story because yes, the original poster is 100% correct. There are people out there that literally don't want you to do better than them, and they will actively fight against you in any way they possibly can to bring you back down to their level. So if you're doing well in something, just keep it to yourself. Don't tell anybody your business and just be successful in private, because this kind of behavior is completely toxic and the original poster definitely did not deserve to get treated this way. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my family that if they don't like the way something is, then they need to take care of it themselves, as I literally have no time to do the chores they're complaining about, as I'm currently in the middle of trying to get my master's degree to better my family. But right now, I feel like I laid it on too thick, and I'm honestly starting to doubt myself. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I'm married and I have 3 kids, and they're all teenagers. My husband and I both work, and my kids are in school and do sports or clubs after school. I recently hit a ceiling in my field, and in order to continue to grow professionally, I had to get a graduate degree, so I started my master's. In the past, I usually did most of the chores. My husband does the typical man chores. My kids have some of their own chores, like doing their own laundry, taking turns sweeping and vacuuming, cleaning their own bathroom, etc. But I did the majority of the rest and all of the cooking. So I'm a year into my degree, and at the start, I was keeping up with the chores I did before, but it quickly wasn't possible. I then asked for help, and I was told, well, everything's fine, you're just being too picky. But over time, my family seems to be getting fed up. They've been complaining about things a lot lately, from eating frozen meals, to the floors having stains on them, all the way to the stairs having dust bunnies and pet fur on them. If they bring it up, I tell them they are capable of handling it, but they just walk away and it just doesn't get done. I'm doing what I can, but between work, school, and everything else at home, it can't all be done. We aren't living in squalor, but I just can't get the finer details like I could before. Well, yesterday my husband came to me while I was doing my homework and said that the shower curtain liner in our bathroom was moldy, and my god, this pushed me over the edge. I then had my family come into the living room, and I told them that if they don't like how something is, they have able bodies and they can deal with it themselves, that they have the skills to clean. I've just been taking care of so much that they don't see, stating that right now I need them to step up, that if they don't like something, then they need to step up and take care of it, and how I also plan to redistribute the chores accordingly. Now, my kids were arguing that they shouldn't have to do more. They're in school and they're busy afterwards. But I told them that I don't care, I'm busy too, and I can't do it all. And in nicer terms, I basically said they either need to step up or shut up. Well, that night my husband told me I was too harsh and that I need to lighten up. He says I was rude and basically telling them their feelings don't matter and that I need to lay off of them. But I told him the message wasn't only for the kids, it was for him too. He needs to step up as well. But afterwards, I started to doubt myself and I felt too harsh. And as a result, no one's really talking to me now. So I'm now worried that I laid it on just a little bit too thick. I mean, I did change up the status quo in my own household for my own personal reasons. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, this is so stupid. No, you're not the jerk at all. Your family's being very spoiled. You clearly took care of them in ways that they obviously didn't know about. And now that those things are like starting to pop up, they're trying to be like, oh my gosh, this is so moldy. The curtain's moldy, mom. What do we do? It's like, oh, I don't know. Get some spray and clean it yourself. Like, they do realize you're getting this degree to better the family, right? Why would they not be on board and be like, okay, let me help out mom and be more responsible? Especially your husband. Like, what's his excuse? He could easily step up and be like, okay, it's time to take care of my wife and help out. But instead, he's pouting like a child, acting like the original poster is being unreasonable. So no, you're not the jerk. This is honestly something that they can easily figure out. And the fact that they're still not willing to like step up, in my opinion, is unbelievably toxic. Am I the jerk for taking back my tip after the waitress humiliated me in front of everybody, all because I left a 10% tip, saying this wasn't good enough and that I need to give more money since servers struggle just to pay their rent? Because right now I'm still very upset and I'm not sure if I made a mistake. Here's how it went down. Okay, so this occurred a few nights ago and I just can't believe it actually happened the way that it did. My partner and I dined out at this Italian restaurant that we've been to several times now. It's not highly sophisticated, but pleasant enough that you get to sit down, order wine, and have a relaxing evening. Now, our server, let's name her Samantha, was kind of in a daze throughout the entire night. She lost my drink twice, served the wrong starter, and vanished for what seemed like an eternity when it arrived the time to order some dessert. It wasn't the end of the world. I mean, I've worked customer service myself, and I get that hectic nights go wild. However, the service was really poor. When the check came in, I paid and left a 10% cash tip. It's not excessive, but it's also not nothing either, and I really thought it was reasonable given the circumstances. We were just standing up to leave when Samantha came over, took the cash and said, "Seriously? This is it?" And she had said it audibly, with a few people at some nearby tables turning around and staring at us. And when she did this, I was taken aback. I didn't even know what to say. She then added by saying, "You know, servers can't pay their rent because of people like you. If you can't tip properly, then don't dine out." Well, the restaurant became totally silent, like sitcom silence, and my girlfriend was wincing. But I just remained calm and I said to her, "Okay, sorry you feel that way." And I started to leave the building. Then, no kidding, she said to me, "Whatever, cheapskates." But she said this loud enough that it was not only us that could hear it. So I turned around, I went back over, I walked over to the table and I took the tip and I left without saying another word. Now, my girlfriend later informed me that I did fine with this, but one of my friends feels like I had overstepped by insisting on getting the tip back. That no matter what, you just leave it and you move on. But I feel like to be humiliated and scolded, all because I left a 10% tip that I actually was going to leave for them, was completely out of bounds. So I really need to know, am I the jerk for retrieving the tip after she yelled at us in front of everybody in the restaurant? Because right now I'm still incredibly pissed off and I don't know if I made a mistake. Okay, dude, if someone ever did that to me and humiliated me like that, I would not only take the tip back, but I would also go straight to the manager. Like, this is just completely toxic. Who in their right mind would act like this? Like, seriously, this is a good way of just completely losing your job and any credibility as a server. So no, you're not the jerk. This is some stupid behavior, and this server absolutely deserved to get the tip taken away, especially after the way she humiliated you in front of everybody. My girlfriend's entitled friend wants me to pay for his dinner, all because of a minor disagreement that was incredibly small in nature, proving to me once and for all that this guy was super entitled. Here's what happened. Last Saturday night, my girlfriend and I went to have dinner, and we actually ran into one of her friends from high school and his girlfriend. From what I've gathered, they used to be close, but drifted apart after graduation. Since my girlfriend and her friend hadn't seen each other in a long time, I suggested we all get a table together, and he and his girlfriend agreed to that. Well, whenever we get to a nice place or eat something new, my girlfriend likes to take photos. It's not like she has a full photo shoot. She takes what, maybe 10 seconds? It's not a big deal, and it's something that she likes, so I don't really care. So when we get our food, my girlfriend took out her phone, and the other girl took out hers as well. The friend then complained and made fun of her girlfriend, and actually tried to get me on his side, but I just simply said that it's not that big of a deal. deal, that I like to see my girlfriend happy and waiting a few seconds before eating is nothing to complain about. Well, I could tell that he didn't like me much after saying that, but I really don't care. I had a nice dinner with my girlfriend and she got to catch up with an old friend. Later that night, my girlfriend showed me her phone, and after leaving the restaurant, her friend had an argument with his girlfriend over his comments during dinner, and somehow he was blaming me. He told her that I owed him for the dinner, and my girlfriend just laughed at him, because that truly is a ridiculous thing to say. Yeah, this guy's an idiot, like seriously. He's trying to be like, wow, this is so stupid, isn't this dumb? But like, if my girlfriend enjoyed taking photos of food, then like, why not just let it happen? There's no reason to make fun of that. This makes her happy. Just let her do it. It's what, 10 seconds? It's not that big of a deal. So this guy just made things super awkward for no reason, all because he wanted to be a bully at everybody else's expense. An entitled jerk I've never worked with literally worked against me to try and block me from getting promoted. But after several years, I finally got to return the favor, blocking her from getting a job at my company and effectively blocking her from an enormous payday after we get bought out by a bigger company. Here's how it all went down. Okay, so I was working at a large company with plenty of politics. Promotions within a division were reviewed by a group of middle managers from different departments in that division during a live meeting with the head of division. Now, I was up for promotions, but I didn't get it. A couple of my manager level friends were in the meeting and actually told me why I got blocked. Basically, a manager from another department, who I had never worked with by the way, stood up and argued against my promotion, probably because this person was upset that a promotion she had put up was successfully argued against by her own department head. She had made up some completely untrue statement about my performance in order to get her way. Well, 4 years later, I'm a department head at a small company when we open a position as a head of function that my promotion blocker was part of. And sure enough, she applies and is scheduled for an interview when I get contacted by human resources because they notice we worked at the same company at the same time. Now, I remembered her blocking my promotion, so I told human resources that she wasn't good, she wouldn't be a good fit, and hiring her would be a mistake and all this other garbage. And so I effectively got her interview canceled, and they just told her that we decided to elevate to an internal candidate instead. 3 years later, and this company would end up getting taken out by a larger company for a massive stock price increase over the price that we were at when the position opened. And because we had lots of stock options, I effectively cost her an enormous payout, which is so satisfying because that's what she gets for being a jerk in a very connected industry, especially towards someone who literally had nothing to do with her. Yeah, you literally never know who you could be working for, so you probably in life, and especially in like the corporate world, you really should be nice to people and just try to play fair. Because yeah, sure, sometimes it works out where you can step on the little guy and get ahead, but I would argue that most times it doesn't work out that way. So in my opinion, the fact that the original poster did this to the person who blocked their promotion, like I think that's fantastic and absolutely deserved, because that lady literally got in your way for no good reason. And the fact that karma came back to bite her in the butt is absolutely fantastic. Am I the jerk for telling my friend that I don't want to end up like her after she told me to lower my standards after I denied one of her friends on a date? Because now we are not talking to each other and I feel like our relationship has completely imploded. And at this point, I'm honestly not sure what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I met my friend who we will call Rachel 3 years ago in university and we became friends. For context, I'm 22 years old and I have never dated before and I'm completely fine with that. I don't purposefully seek out relationships and I'm comfortable being by myself. I have a few close friends and this is enough for me. In contrast, Rachel has had a lot of boyfriends and in her own words basically says she doesn't like to be single. She met her husband, who we will call Max, 2 years ago in one of our university classes and they quickly began dating. He isn't the most pleasant guy to be around in my opinion, and they had quite a few big arguments during the relationship. He even tried to flirt with me and I told Rachel about it, but she just dismissed it, saying he was probably just trying to butter me up so I can help him with homework. He's also told some awful jokes in the past as well. Whenever they fought, I always told Rachel she deserves better and to please just break up with him, but in the end, they always made up. He then proposed to her after 1 year and they got married 4 months ago. However, after they moved in together in the flat that Rachel's parents pay the rent for, Max became even worse. He never helps out with cleaning or cooking, doesn't really take Rachel out on dates anymore, and whenever she tries to talk to him about it, Max tells her to stop complaining about wife duties. So, a few days ago, Rachel asked me if I would like to go on a date with one of her friends from high school who is also single and is looking for a relationship. I've never been on a date before, so I agreed out of curiosity. Well, we went to a nice restaurant, and the guy never asked me a single question about myself back, and after I got tired of coming up with questions about him, we just sat the rest of the meal in awkward silence. We then split the bill, and after he walked me to the subway station, he tried to kiss me, but I declined as politely as I could, and I just went home. The next day, I met up with Rachel, and apparently she's already heard about how the date went from her friend. She asked me why I rejected him, and I told her the reasons I mentioned before, and that I really just didn't like the guy. Then she rolled her eyes and said that I need to lower my standards because honestly, I'm not that attractive. She then said that I blew maybe my only chance to date, and if I continue like that, I'll end up forever alone, which is despite the fact that she knows I'm fine not being in a relationship. Also, I'm not insecure about my appearance, but hearing my friends say that about me really hurt. I then got angry and I said, well, it's better to be forever alone than end up like you, with a husband that doesn't even respect me. Well, when I said that, she started crying and said to me, you're being rude, I'm just looking out for you. And then she went ahead and left. And ever since this happened, we haven't texted each other or spoken ever since then. So I'm honestly not sure if I want to salvage this friendship after finding out this is how Rachel felt about me all this time. However, I feel guilty for saying this to her, especially when I knew it was a sore spot, and also for kind of blaming her for the fact that her husband is awful. So am I the jerk here? Because right now I'm honestly not sure what to do. Dude, your friend is so stupid. Rachel actually is an idiot for saying half the things she said. First of all, the fact that she's trying to be like, oh yeah, you need to get going or else you're never gonna find anybody. You're not very attractive, so like the clock's ticking, hurry up. Which is so ironic coming from the lady in an awful relationship. She is literally with a guy who doesn't respect her and treats her like crap. And she has the audacity to say the original poster's ugly? Like, dude, what are you doing? That is not a good friend in the slightest. Like, that's a terrible person that you definitely don't have to put up with. So honestly, the fact that you shot back at her when she called you ugly, like, that is completely justified in my opinion. If she can't handle the heat, then guess what? Don't get in the way of the crossfire. Like, she's the one that opened herself up to get hit, not you. So the fact that she's trying to be like, I can't believe you said that, that's awful. It's like, yeah, okay, well, you just called me ugly and said I'm gonna die alone. Like, that's not very nice either, lady. So no, you're not the jerk here, and honestly, I would definitely find a better friend, because this one sounds like a mess and you can absolutely do better than this. An entitled old jerk barges into our restaurant and steals the one private table we had set aside for a couple who was looking forward to it all night, effectively ruining their night and my night as well. Here's what happened. For starters, I work at a restaurant that is closer to a local small bistro of some kind, which is not super upscale but usually fully booked out, because we are in an awesome location and we don't have many tables. We recently had a woman email us saying that she wants to bring her boyfriend here to celebrate a very special event, and it's not too unusual to receive more detailed table requests for special occasions every now and then. It can range from booking a whole seating area for privacy all the way to asking to put up some decor and then some. But this lady really didn't ask for much. She just wanted to know if she could pay up front to have a more secluded, decorated table. Now, we love these kinds of reservations, especially when people ask nicely and are realistic about it. We closed off a little corner of the restaurant and put up some string lights, some candles, and some flowers. She also came in earlier that night to put up something of her own. And again, I don't want to say what it was for, but it was clearly a very personal item. Well, the night of, the couple arrives, gives me their last name, and I, of course, know immediately who they are, and I happily lead them to their very special table. But when I get there, I find an old lady and a little kid sitting there with their belongings all over the place. It turns out they thought the please wait to be seated sign and the closed for private event sign and the reserve sign somehow didn't apply to them. They just barged right past everything when no one was looking, and sure enough simply claimed the only free table that they could see. Now, some people just have zero awareness, so part of me had to assume that maybe they were just a little slow. I tried to confront them very nicely, even though I was panicking with the couple right behind me. But boy oh boy, that older lady knew exactly what she was doing, and immediately blew up about how no one was tending to their table, and that we were making them wait. I then explained that this table was reserved and that they needed to leave, and that the whole place was fully booked out. She then loudly explained to me that she did not care, that the other restaurant on our block was also full, and that her and her grandson have every right to be here. It took a lot of arguing between me, them, and my coworkers, but when we said we would call the police to have them removed, she finally gave up. But unfortunately, most of the damage was already done. It left everyone in a pretty sour mood, and to make matters even worse, the idiotic kid had tampered with the sweet woman's personal item that she had put up there right before. Now, this thing wasn't valuable. It was just a cute little surprise she was hoping to show to the couple. Well, the couple looked pretty upset, and while they didn't blame us for anything, I could just tell how close to tears the woman was. The surprise she had planned was a pretty big deal, and I seriously felt so awful for her. I've always heard stories about having to deal with crazy people in the service industry, but this seriously was a first for me. I'm just a student doing this some nights a week for some extra cash. But my absolute deepest condolences goes to anyone dealing with this kind of crap for a living, because honestly, this sounds like way too much to put up with. Oh my gosh, talk about entitled. You mean to tell me that these people ran through like what, 3 different signs and said, oh yeah, we're gonna sit right here. This reserve seat, yeah, it's actually reserved for us. We're gonna claim it and take it over. Like, I don't blame the kid for showing up and sitting at the table, but I absolutely blame this old lady for stepping up and being like, oh yeah, we're gonna sit there. Because you know for a fact she knows better than this. She knows better than to walk in and just barge right in and do whatever she wants. Any reasonable person would be at the hostess stand waiting for like any seat to open up or something like that. This is not the first restaurant this lady's walked into, and I'm sure she's done this at other restaurants, where she goes in there and does whatever she wants, and then she thinks she can get away with it just by being nasty and rude to you. And I seriously hate people who act this way. Like seriously, those people suck and they are absolute scumbags. So yes, this was a crappy situation that absolutely could have been avoided, especially if that old woman took the time to read. My entitled neighbors cussed me out all because I wouldn't buy her baby formula, as she tried to claim that I was letting her baby go hungry. Here's how it went down. Okay, so my fiance and I currently live in a sober living facility for couples. We've been here since March and are about to graduate next month. There's another couple in the program that just moved in upstairs. The female, we'll call her Kate, has been constantly asking us for things ever since she and her husband moved in 2 weeks ago. For more background, my fiance has a good paying job, but we're trying to save every penny we can to get our own apartment, because if we don't have one by the time we graduate, we will literally be out on the street. So while I don't mind helping people when I can, I am not in a place where I can really afford to help other people. I mean, I'm barely staying afloat myself. It started out small, a cup of sugar here, an egg there, but then it escalated. She started asking for money for bus fare, to borrow my perfume, and even wear my clothing. Now, I've been where she is, coming off the streets with nothing, so I've tried to be as generous as I can, but today she pushed it way too far. My fiance and I were laying down for a nap. We even had a sign on the door that said we're sleeping, but sure enough, she came knocking anyways. My fiance does not handle being woken up well at all, especially when someone is rude enough to blatantly ignore the sign. So when he answered the door, he had a bit of an attitude. Now, instead of apologizing, she immediately burst into fake tears, saying her baby needed formula and that she needed $50 to send to her mom, or else her mom was going to terminate her rights. My fiance asked when she would pay it back, and she said she didn't know, but not to worry, that she would definitely pay him back as soon as she could. He then told her that he couldn't give away $50, and if she expected him to loan it to her, he was going to have some sort of time frame. She then got huffy and snapped at him. I literally just told you I'd pay it back. And he finally was just like, yeah, I would if I could, but things are tight right now, so I can't really afford it. Sorry. And that's when she suddenly claimed that she would pay it back tomorrow. And obviously that was a lie, and we both knew it. So he told her he couldn't do it and then just shut the door. Well, a few minutes later, we heard her cussing outside of our door, saying things like, I will know better than to ask anyone around here for effing help ever again. I can't wait till that idiot asks me for something. But the real kicker was to say, it takes a cold piece of crap to let a baby go hungry. And it's like, excuse me? Ain't nobody letting your baby go hungry but you and your man. I am not a piece of crap, and I would never let a child starve. If I knew where that baby was, I'd go buy formula and take it to her mom myself. But I'm not handing $50 to someone that I know for a fact is not going to spend it on her child. And I'm absolutely sure I'm not going to loan it to someone who I know is lying to my face about paying it back. I'm a recovering addict too. I know the games. I've played every single one of them. And even if what she said about her mom was true, which I completely doubt it was, the fact that her mom is willing to so easily terminate her rights just lets me know that this has been an ongoing thing with her. She's obviously not taking care of her child, and hasn't been for a while, or her mom wouldn't be getting this fed up with her crap. Now, we have never told her no before today. We've given and given, but $50 in hard-earned money is a lot different than a cup of sugar, especially when we're saving every dime to avoid homelessness, which is essentially what her and her man should be doing. They are both perfectly capable of getting jobs just like the rest of us. It is not my responsibility to take care of two grown adults. The audacity of some people never ceases to amaze me, and this lady and her husband absolutely take the cake. Yeah, this is one of those situations where you called it perfectly. That money was never going to their baby. It's going to the addiction they clearly struggle with. And then for them to stand outside your door and be like, I'm never helping these people with anything. It's like, dude, you've never helped them with anything. You were never going to in the first place, and you've only taken from them. Like, lady, who are you kidding right now? Because seriously, people like this are so toxic, and I just cannot stand this kind of attitude. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for kicking my wife's family out of the house after they kept extending their stay way beyond what they told us? Here's what's going on. Okay, to start things out, we just bought a house 2 weeks ago. We are not even fully unpacked when my wife's parents said, hey, next month, can we stay 3 nights over the weekend? It would be her mom, dad, and 2 youngest siblings. Now, the week they asked, they changed their mind, packed the car, and just drove here straight away. They then got here on a Sunday and said they were only staying for 3 nights. But then 2 nights into it, they said they want to stay 1 more night. Now, suddenly my wife's sister wants to come up here and spend the weekend, meaning that the this entire week, there's a few people staying over, and honestly, I want everybody gone. I mean, I'm working late just to not come home. My routine is completely gone. I need to mow and do other house chores, and they're keeping our toddler up late, sitting at the table drinking beer. And yeah, sure, they brought up some really great house gifts, but I just feel really twisted about this. I do not care about them. So am I the jerk for telling my wife never to do this again and asking them to leave early? Also, would I be in the wrong for never allowing people to stay here during the week when I have to go to work? Because right now I'm honestly so frustrated that I just don't know what to do. Oh man, there's no way you're the jerk, because this would set my hair on fire, dude. These people literally showed up on a night you were not expecting them and said, oh, we're gonna stay for a few days. And then they extend their stay without asking. Like, dude, that's 2 red flags right there. Showing up unannounced and then staying longer than you said you would. And on top of that, it just doesn't seem like they care in the slightest that they're ruining your plans. Like, they're just straight up in the way. They're just not doing anything. And instead, they're just sitting around doing nothing. So yeah, that's super obnoxious, and no, you would not be the jerk. Because if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. My coworker said that I should cover her shift, all because, according to her, I don't have any real family I can spend with over the holidays. And I'm honestly so blown away by this entitlement, because some of my other coworkers actually agree with her, and I'm honestly blown away. Here's how it went down. I work in retail, and this past Christmas was the first time in forever I actually got Christmas Eve off. I was planning a quiet dinner at home with my boyfriend. Nothing huge, just something that felt special to us. About a week before, one of my coworkers pulled me aside and asked me if I would take her shift. I told her nicely that I already had plans, but she gave me this weird little smirk and she says, well, it's not like you have real family anyways. And when she said this, I just stood there. At first I thought, okay, maybe I just misheard her. But no, she doubled down like that somehow made it okay to dump her crap on me. I didn't even know what to say. It was such an unnecessarily nasty thing to say too. Now, I didn't snap. I just said no again and then I walked off. Later on, I let my manager know what happened, not to cause drama, but because honestly, it just didn't sit right with me, and I wanted to have it on the record. Well, since then, she's been icy towards me, and apparently a couple of other coworkers think that I was petty for not helping her out. Maybe they expected me to just suck it up, but I'm so tired of always being the one expected to bend. Just because I don't have kids or a big, loud family dinner doesn't mean that my time doesn't matter. My life still counts, and I am not gonna let people treat me like it doesn't. Dude, your coworker's an idiot. Do they really expect you to bend to their will when they're like, oh, you don't have any real family anyways? Like, dude, you're not gonna get anything done by treating your coworker like that. Especially when you're going to insult them, dude. Like, what an idiot. That's such a dumb way to handle that. So you didn't do anything wrong, and honestly, I'm glad you reported them, because this is definitely something you want a record of. And your other coworkers are morons. If they really think that you're being petty and it's like, oh, you should have helped her out, well then why didn't they? Why didn't they step up and be like, I'll cover your shift, don't worry about it? Like, it's always the people who are quick to judge that are also the last to help out. It's like, oh, you love sitting on the sidelines and saying, wow, you should have done that differently. But when it comes to okay, well, why didn't you step up and do it? They literally have nothing to say because, oh, this is not about me, this is about you. So good for you for standing up for yourself, because you do not owe these people anything, especially if they're gonna talk to you like that. Today, I was chewed out by my hotel manager in a way I have never experienced before in my life, leaving me shaken and panicky because right now I'm honestly in fear for my job. Here's what's going on. Okay, before I start, let me preface this by saying that this is my first job and I've only been working for 2 weeks. So I work at a hotel that has 3 restaurants. One is the main buffet-style restaurant, another one is a la carte and free for all guests once a week, and the third one is a bit more exclusive. Now, I only got trained on how to take reservations, and I was specifically told that you cannot book a table for the same day. It has to be at least 1 day in advance. That's how I'd seen it done, and it's what everyone around me confirmed was the rule. Anyways, earlier this evening, a guest came in visibly irritated and said she wanted to make a reservation for tonight. I politely told her I was sorry, but there was nothing available for the evening, and I offered her a spot for the next day, and when I said that, she got angry and just stormed off. Now, I didn't think much of it. I mean, this has happened before. Not everyone likes hearing no, but most understand the policy. However, 30 minutes later, some guy who works at the hotel walks in asking about the incident. It turns out the customer had been complaining about it at the reception. We explained the situation and he seemed frustrated but says nothing about it. Well, a while later, we are told the hotel manager wants a meeting with us. He pulls in me, a couple of my coworkers, but not our actual supervisor, which is already very weird. Then he starts grilling us about the guest and what I said, and when I explained the policy I was taught, he basically says the rule doesn't exist and you're never supposed to tell a guest no, which is so weird to me because neither my supervisors nor my coworker knew about that rule. They had been working the way they did for years without hearing anything about it. He spent 50 minutes explaining procedures that I didn't understand at all and finished by saying, don't ever say no to a guest again or I will end you. And I think he meant to say fire you, I think, or at least I hope so. At that point, I was overwhelmed, I was panicking, trying not to cry in front of everybody. story. After the meeting, one of my coworkers hugged me and I just broke down. We had to hide so guests and staff wouldn't see me sobbing, but of course, some people still did. A bit later, our supervisor, who hadn't been in the meeting, finally found me and said that he had been given the exact same answer I did because that's what we all knew to be true. He told me he's been watching me and I'm doing a great job, and that I shouldn't let people treat me like that, especially when I'm still new and trying my best. And with that, I started crying again. I ended up crying 3 separate times that evening, in front of staff, on the bus ride home, like literally everybody somehow knew. I kept being worried that they might think I'm being manipulative or weak or dramatic, but I think it was literally just a panic attack, all because I followed the rule that they taught me. It's currently 3 a.m. and I'm still overwhelmed and I honestly just don't know what to do. Okay, first of all, I understand being upset from your job, like I totally get that. I've been there, I've experienced that, and yes, it really does suck. But let's circle back for a second, because this guy literally said he was going to end you. And I think you understand what I mean by end. We're talking like delete the original poster from existence. I can't say the word for obvious reasons. And that is absolutely insane. Like, I understand that he's like really being dramatic here, but no boss should ever say that to their employee. Like, I'm sorry, that's not appropriate. That sounds like a one-way trip to human resources, because that's a threat, bro. Like, what's going on right now? That's also incredibly unprofessional. You're 2 weeks in, and guess what? This is how you were taught to handle things. And this idea of like, oh, don't ever say no to a customer. Like, dude, you're an idiot and you clearly have been in management for way too long, because yes, you absolutely need to say no to customers sometimes. So truly, I'm so sorry this happened to you. This really sucks, but I completely understand where you're coming from. But at the end of the day, you need to realize that that hotel manager is a piece of garbage. And what he said to you is something that absolutely needs to be reported. An entitled old man and his son give me a hard time after I'm unable to help him get back in his wheelchair, all because I'm 9 months pregnant, making me feel awkward over this really weird encounter. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I'm 9 months pregnant and 2 weeks away from my due date. I take a daily walk for exercise, and on today's walk, I saw 2 men on the footpath across from me. One of them was elderly and had taken a fall, and his son, who was also not that young, was trying to help him up. They had one of those stroller things that's not quite a wheelchair, but has a little seat thing on it. I then called out if they needed help, and I crossed the street. I tried to help the son hoist his father up, but the father was dead weight and couldn't assist in any way. I also have no experience in lifting people, and the son probably didn't either, so we were not getting anywhere. The son kept suggesting new ways to try, but after a few tries, I said that being 9 months pregnant, I wasn't sure how effective I would be. The son and father then got snarky and said something like, well, this will be over soon if you just help us out. I then offered to knock doors for help, and the son just shut down the idea completely and continued to give me directions. And his directions kind of pissed me off because it was like, do this and do that. So I said that if they don't want to ask the neighbors, they could possibly call for an ambulance. And where I'm from, if you have a membership, it's either free or not that expensive. The dad then made a sound at me and looked at his son and asked, well, why isn't she helping us? Eventually, a random car drove past and I flagged it down like a mad woman. It turns out it was someone from a nearby house, so he came back with his sons and got it sorted out. It was a very awkward encounter, and honestly, I'm not sure if I was in the wrong here, because these guys were very rude. Oh yeah, this situation really sucks. I understand where the guys were coming from, but also, dude, the original poster's pregnant. And we're talking like very pregnant, like 9 months pregnant, about to have a baby pregnant. So for these guys to be like, why aren't you helping us up? It's like, dude, what are you talking about? She can't lift anything. She literally can't do that. Like, I don't know what they're looking for, but like, seriously, get a grip. And like, honestly, the original poster did a lot. They tried to help him up. They tried to like, I don't know, get someone else to come out and help them. And these people were being like completely snappy. And I totally understand where they're coming from, but it's like, dude, let's read the room a little bit. Like, she clearly can't help you up. Like, why are you acting like that? So no, you didn't do anything wrong. And yeah, these guys were absolutely being very rude. My niece literally thinks she owns my parents' house, as she is constantly saying that I'm not welcome there, despite the fact that my parents welcome me over all the time. Here's what's going on. I'm a 27-year-old female, and I've been over at my parents' place a lot these past couple of months. I live in a town where the bus stops running at 9:15 at night, and I have rehearsal that runs until 10 o'clock at night. So I just go to my parents' place and I stay the night. Yes, they have offered to drive me home whenever I have rehearsal, but I prefer not to make them drive the half hour it will take to get out to the town. So we just wait until the morning when my dad goes to work. Now, my brother and his fiance and his 3 kids from another relationship all live with my parents. But for this story, I'll be focusing on my middle niece, who's 9 years old, who I will call Sarah for the sake of the story. Now, my nieces will notice me come in at 11 o'clock at night. Now, because I would not eat all day and have to get up at 6 o'clock the next morning, I would just make something really quick and fall asleep. Well, Sarah would see me make dinner and demand that I stop stealing their food. Keep in mind, there are no separate shelves, nor are things labeled, as my brother doesn't contribute to the grocery bill. She also gets mad when I come over and demands to know why. Well, the other day I had to take a test online, and I had the mic on and the camera on, and Sarah was playing Minecraft videos very loudly. When I said something, she yelled at me, and you know what? I ended up failing that test, and I had to retake take it. Fast forward to yesterday, and Sarah asked me when I would stop coming over, so I told her it was none of her concern. She then began telling everyone in the house that I was getting kicked out of my apartment, so I told her that wasn't the case, and she just got mad and threw a fit. My parents then scolded her, but she got even angrier, saying that I'm no longer welcome in the house. Now trust me, this is just a few things that she has done, and I'm sorry if this seems boring, but I just need to rant about my niece because right now I really don't know what to do. Okay, if this was me, I would be very frustrated, because in my opinion, there is nothing more annoying than some kid who's not being parented, because it really sucks that you're on the blunt end of this kind of garbage. I know if I was in your shoes, I would go immediately to the parents and be like, look, you need to correct this before I correct it, and trust me, you don't want me correcting this stupid kid, because seriously, this kid has no say in whether or not you're at the house. She literally needs to learn how to mind her own business and keep her mouth shut. So yeah, this kid is completely out of touch and just really idiotic, because this kind of behavior is completely unacceptable. An entitled boomer thought that he could be rude to me all because I'm a female, but he instantly regretted that after he met my boyfriend, who shut this coward down in a way that he will truly never forget. Here's how it happened. Okay, so yesterday my boyfriend and I went to happy hour and then ran to Whole Foods to return something I bought from Amazon. We were looking for the return desk when I noticed the boomer guy coming in behind me. I pointed out the return desk to my boyfriend when all of a sudden, this boomer hightails it to get right in front of me. Now, mind you, he had one item to return, as did I, but he was determined on getting in front of me. Well, long story short, he went up to the desk before me and stood in front of the employee who was working on repacking a return. Well, she looked at him and said, "The line starts there," pointing to the sign that clearly states line starts here where I was already standing. Well, this boomer just stood there with his return, refusing to move from the spot in front of the one employee. Another employee came up and said that she could help who was next in line, so I decided to walk up with my box. Well, this jerk then yells out, "I was here first," and then practically tried to body check me. Mind you, he was still standing in front of the other employee. I stepped back because I saw a young kid come up and stand next to him, and normally I would have happily called him some kind of not so nice name and then hip checked him. And for reference, I used to play roller derby and I'm not tiny. Now, my boyfriend did not like that he, for one, practically ran to get in front of me, and secondly, barked at me and nearly pushed me out of the way. I guarantee he would not have been so aggressive if my boyfriend was behind him, but because I'm a female, he thought that he could be a jerk to me. Well, little did he know, my boyfriend's a retired cop and doesn't put up with people being rude, especially to any female, let alone me. My boyfriend then proceeded to let loose with a tirade of how he was rude to me because I'm a female and that he wasn't as important as he thinks he is. I then watched this boomer instantly shrink down and refuse to make eye contact. After he was done, the employees at the return desk apologized for him being so rude. I told them it wasn't their fault and some people just don't have manners. And to be completely honest, if he would have asked me if he could go first because he was in a rush or something, I would have happily let him go first. But no, he was more important than me, a female. I thoroughly enjoyed watching him turn shades of red as my boyfriend gave him a good teardown, because this boomer absolutely deserved it. Oh man, I love running into people like this because they are always so completely stuck up. Like seriously, anything will piss them off and they're just on the edge all the time. This guy literally walked into the store and said, "Oh, I'm gonna be first in line," and not only sprints to the front, but also gets in the wrong part of the line. It's like, dude, you've got to have some serious guts and some serious entitlement to be acting that way. And I 100% think the original poster is right. This guy only acted like this because you're a woman, and that is the only reason he tried to pull that. So I'm really glad your boyfriend stepped up and said, "Oh no, we're not putting up with that," because this is some unbelievably horrible behavior. Like, all he had to do was get in the right line and this all would have been completely fine. Or even just, oh, I don't know, walk over there like a normal person. That would have been a reasonable thing to do instead of acting like an idiot and humiliating yourself. Like, it's so funny because the second your boyfriend stepped in and said, "Oh, you better cut the crap," this guy instantly clams up and doesn't make eye contact. Like, talk about being a coward, my god. So good for you guys handling this in such a dynamic way, because this guy absolutely deserved to get shut down. My coworker seems to think that I should cover all of her shifts simply because I'm single, as she will literally put in shift changes without my permission, all because she thinks I have nothing to do outside of work. And I'm honestly so sick of dealing with this that at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, this is driving me absolutely insane. I work at a restaurant and there's this girl who I will call Sarah, who is constantly asking me to cover her shifts. Now, I'm a 26-year-old male, and apparently, according to her, being single means that I have no life. At first, it was occasional. She had a date, a family thing, whatever, but now it's literally every single week. Last Friday, she texted me at 6 o'clock asking if I could work her double because she wanted to go to her boyfriend's cousin's birthday party. When I said no, she said to me, "Oh, come on, you don't have anything else to do anyways." But you know what? Yesterday was the final straw. She scheduled a shift trade with me without asking, and then told our manager that I agreed to it. When I confronted her, she said, "Oh, I figured you'd be fine with it since you don't have a girlfriend or kids to worry about. And it's like the audacity of this woman. Just because I'm single doesn't mean I don't have plans, hobbies, or a life outside of work. I have friends and family and things that I want to do on my days off. Our manager seems to think that this is just normal workplace stuff, but I'm getting really tired of being treated like my time doesn't matter. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, if you haven't done it already, I would never cover a shift for this lady ever again. If she's gonna treat you like someone who has no plans and no life simply because you're single, while also on top of that, be someone who she can take advantage of, then my God, that's like a one-way ticket to never getting help from me ever again, especially if I was in your shoes. I would also go to my boss and be like, are you insane? I didn't agree to any of this. This is not normal, and no, I don't appreciate this. Like, why is your manager not hearing both sides of the story? Why are they automatically trusting Sarah's opinion over yours? Like, that's so ridiculous in my opinion. And it doesn't make any sense, dude. Like, seriously. This lady literally tried to do a shift change with you without asking first, and then lied about it as if you agreed to it, but you definitely didn't. And I don't know about you, but that would piss me off so bad. I'd be so mad at them. So yeah, you absolutely need to cut the cord and be like, I'm not helping you anymore. And then block her number and just don't even respond if she asks for that crap again. Because this kind of behavior is incredibly toxic, and in my opinion, it absolutely is workplace bullying. And you definitely do not deserve to be treated like that in the slightest. Thanks for watching. Subscribe down below if you haven't already. And also, please subscribe to Am I the Genius? I think you're gonna love what they're making over there. It's a great channel, and you should definitely check it out. Everything will be linked down below in the description. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.